Chapter 11 Successfully Fooled. Robert, who was just about to lash at Felix for his bousy phone call, saw his grandson wearing a formal suit with a warm smile. The image managed to soften his stern expression a bit. "Rascal, what kind of mess did you do to call me yesterday and act soft with me? I know for a fact that you did not call me a single time to ask for my well-being the past year you were here," he added while touching his belt gently. "So go ahead and spit it out. Did you burn the hotel to flames? Or spent your entire budget fooling around?" Felix did not dare to bullshit after seeing his grandfather's warning technique. "Grandpa, you really misjudged me this time, since I truly missed you and wanted you to spend 15 days with me here." He hugged him firmly and whined with teary eyes. "All I have around me are beaches and servants who won't dare speak out loud in my presence. I have been feeling lonely ever since arriving here. I always wanted to call you multiple times over the past year, but I know you spend the majority of your time having fun with your retired friends. I just did not want to be an annoyance to you." He finished his acting with a quick classic tear wipe. Grandfather Robert stared at his grandson, red eyes, and said indifferently, "All right, drop the act. I did not rule over business empire in my young days, with the half-brain to end up believing your nonsense." He broke from his grandson hug and put his weapon on Felix's shoulder, and added with a threatening tone, "Come on, out with it. The truth why you wanted me here. As for your crybaby bullshit, keep it to yourself. I am damn certain you chose this island to just idle away from the family matters." Felix realized his plan was failing miserably, as he honestly forgot the smarts of his legendary grandfather, who managed to single-handedly raise the business of the family to the point it became an empire. Suddenly his tears dried up like a magic spell. As they turned solemn, he whispered, "Grandpa, I will tell you in private when we reach the hotel. Just trust me on this one." "All right, lead the way. Let's see how you managed the hotel over the past year. Of course, you will love the changes I did to the place. Follow me," Felix replied with a stiff smile. 35 minutes later, in front of the entrance of the hotel, Robert pointed with a shaky finger at the hotel that looked like it was about to fall apart any second. You rascal. How did you manage to make it in an even worse state?" He took a deep breath and stared daggers at his grandson. "You had $30 million as a budget. If used well, you can at least make it look new and fresh. But what the hell is this? The fucking hotel does not even have an entrance. It's just a wide hole where anyone can enter and leave. Are you living in a hotel or a cave? Tell me." Felix was a bit embarrassed being shamed like this, in the presence of servants who were waiting to welcome his grandfather. He said with a cough to defuse some of his grandfather's fury, "Grandpa, this is just the exterior. I spent the majority of the budget in the interior. Just follow me in." As they entered, Felix kept introducing passionately the luxury items young Felix bought by wasting some of his budget money. "Look at this couch. It's made of pure cotton and silk, with some gold dust sprinkled on it. And this table, it's made out of pure wood, with some silver sprinkled on it." Felix had no idea what he was talking about. He just kept using famous online words to describe those furniture. "Enough, you bastard. What do you mean by pure wood? Is there a fucking wood mixed with rocks or what? And what's all about this sprinkled gold and silver? You are not describing a cake." Robert roared with a dark face after he had enough of his grandson bullshit descriptions. He started stomping hard on the floor as he kept shouting, not caring about his image or his health problem. "I got scammed. Fucking scammed, I tell you. I am a business genius. Your mom is a social influence prodigy, and your dad is an investment spider whose senses were never wrong. Yet, you inherited nothing from any of us. This is a scam. Why can't you be like your cousins who are hard-working lads, trying their best to support their parents? Why can't you be the same?" Felix replied furiously, "Because I don't have parents, that's why." Then he went to the stairs while huffing, "The elevator on your right. I will meet you at my suite. Jack will lead you there." Robert instantly froze with a wide mouth, not knowing how to retort, since he knew that losing both of your parents young may either motivate a person to work his hardest or, in the case of Felix, the total opposite. He sighed helplessly and ordered, "Jack, lead the way." Felix, who was acting angry just a while ago, was grinning evilly while climbing the stairs. He was certain that he wouldn't be able to fool his grandfather to stay on the island without giving him the real reason. But now, by adding his parents to the mix, he could act angry with his grandfather until the great chaos arrives. Robert would not dare to leave the island without fixing his relationship with his grandson. Haha, What a joke, I am not a child anymore to throw tantrums like a crybaby over the death of my parents. I already accepted their death long ago and moved on. I certainly know my mother will be proud of me and clap her hands off when she sees how I played my grandpa to save him. Rest in peace, Mom. He kissed 2 fingers and pointed them in the air warmly. Half an hour later, Felix was sitting in the living room couch with his grandpa, watching a movie called The Invasion Day. Robert, on the other hand, was sitting like he was on nails, shifting from place to place, while opening his mouth to say something, but then he sighs and closes it off. He kept doing this until Felix shouted, "Stand still and watch the movie, damn it. It's very important to me." Robert started paying attention to the movie obediently, as he did not want to upset Felix again. "Sorry, Grandpa. It's for your own good." 2 hours later, the credit scene was rolling down the screen, marking the end of the movie. Robert tried to strike a conversation by taking advantage of what they had just watched. "This is a good movie. It shows that humans should never let their guard down, as no one knows what's out there. Hell, tomorrow at this point in time, we could be invaded and killed. You never know." Felix answered back indifferently, "You are right. You never know what's out there. That's why a person must always keep his emotions stable and calm, to not bring harm to oneself in case something like this happened." Robert nodded his head in agreement, then asked, "So what are you going to do now?" "I am going to make some phone calls. The food storage is getting empty." Robert smiled. "All right, go do your work. I will stay here watching TV." Felix took his phone and jacket, then left the suite. Robert took the remote control and clicked on the Netflix menu. Afterward, he entered Felix's playlist to see the movies that his grandson decided to watch. What the hell? There are more than 20 alien invasion movies here. This must be his new favorite genre, he exclaimed in shock after seeing the staggering number of alien movies that were prepared for his brainwashing. Yet he had no idea about that. To bond back with him, I need to understand his taste of movies, so we would have a lot to talk about. He then chose a random movie and started binge watching the playlist with interest. Felix was truly not lying to him about the shortage of food and storage, as Layla sent him a message reminding him to bring new supplies. He suddenly thought about the great chaos that is about to arrive, and the food prices that are going to rise to a staggering sum for a couple of months during it. Felix realized that this is a quite good opportunity to take advantage of, as he can buy the food now cheaply and later use it as fee payment when the island remodels begins. Felix believed that during the chaos no one would mind heading to an empty island where food is abundant and guaranteed security during the chaotic looting. And so he quickly decided to do so, but in a discreet way, as he does not want to make too much of a disturbance, lest his cousins notice and start spying on every move he does after, either to hinder him or to steal his ideas. This is a normal occurrence within the family tradition, since it is a sort of hidden competition between the juniors. One must not only focus on his revival plan, but also take caution against his cousin's interference. Afterward, he took his phone out and called his mother's best friend. Ring, ring, cluck. A sweet voice answered warmly. "Hello, little Felix. How are you doing? I missed you dearly." Felix replied politely, "Hi, Aunt Mary. I am doing fine currently. I was just calling to check on your well-being, as well as ask a small favor from you." Aunt Mary laughed sweetly and said, "How thoughtful of you, little Felix. As for your favor, just ask ahead, you know there are no walls between us." Felix immediately lied with a straight face. "Aunt Mary, I think I inherited my father's investment senses, as now they are tingling to buy a large amount of food. I don't know why, but I trust my father's gift." He quickly added, "And even if my investment did not succeed, I have nothing to lost, since it is just a couple $1,000,000 of food." "Kid, you are not lying to me, are you? You know your father's investment senses were never wrong, not even once. If you claim that you had the same senses as him, I will take a risk and invest in whatever you put your money in. Trust me, Aunt. I am not lying or deceiving you, as I have nothing to earn from doing so." "All right, tell me how much food you need and the type." "I need $2,000,000 of ration foods. Wheat, rice, beans, you know the rest. Try to send them discreetly, as I don't want to alert my cousins. Okay, think of it as done. 3 days from now you will receive the shipment by a boat. I will also buy a couple of millions of food." She continued gently, "If you truly have your father's senses, this will turn into a great profit. But if it was just a normal hunch, it's just a couple of millions lost. Nothing serious. Thanks, Auntie, you are the best. I will wire the payment to your bank account now. Have a good evening. Bye-bye, little Felix. Keep in contact with me. Felix then hanged up and wired $2 million from the $26 million that was left after young Felix wasted $4 million over the past year buying those luxury items. Chapter 12. And so it begins. After dealing with the food situation, Felix sent a message to Layla, explaining to her the details of the shipment, and ordered her to take care of it when it arrives. 2 hours later, Felix and his grandfather walked towards the ballroom, where the banquet was being held, wearing formal suits. Classical songs were being played as servants, bodyguards, and maids all enjoyed themselves, dancing, laughing, and sadly drinking juices instead of alcohol. Robert kept complaining about not having a decent drink ever since he landed in the island, but Felix acted deaf. What Robert didn't know was that Felix ordered all the alcohol in the storage and kitchen to be hidden. Only Jack and himself knew where the stash was hidden, so Robert sadly would have to pass his days without a sip. Afterward, the banquet ended in a good note, and everyone went back to their posts. Felix headed back to his suite, while his grandfather was following behind him using Facecam to talk to his buddies, who were in the bar having the best time of their lives, while he was stuck here until Felix feels better. Haha, Baldy, you look like the time you heard about your heart disease. A mocking voice was heard from the phone. What do you know? I am having the best time of my life here with my grandson. We were just at a party, and tomorrow I will head to the beach to sunbathe. Make sure to cover yourself with sun cream or your skin would lose its luster, and it won't feel good making you run around the block naked anymore. Screw you, Benjamin. What kind of nonsense are you saying? When did I even run naked? If I knew you would start bullshitting, I would not have accepted your call. Now fuck off. Robert hanged up on him and tried to explain himself. Don't listen to him, kid. Your grandpa is an honorable elder in the family. Why would I do such thing? I believe you. Don't worry. Just go to bed, it's already late. Felix nodded his head. Robert entered his suite, which was next to Felix's one, while yelling, I really didn't run naked. He is defaming my character. Benjamin, that bastard, always tries to create trouble for me. Felix just shushed him with a finger on his lips and pushed him inside, then closed the door. I really didn't do it. You have to believe me. Robert was still denying it even inside his suite. Felix entered his bedroom as he thought in pity. Grandpa, your love for running nude in public is already an open secret in the family, only you still have not realized it. He then mused, I doubt it. With your intelligence, you already knew it, but still don't care. Ayo, so old yet so pervert. If my mother was alive and saw you like this, she will demolish you. 3 days later, 9 a.m., near the seaport, a large ship carrying a hefty amount of red containers arrived while honking its horn. Felix was standing near the dock with Layla by his side. His grandfather did not accompany him since he binge-watched more than 5 movies last night and was extremely tired, and so Felix left him to sleep in peace. After seeing everything in order, Felix ordered his servants while clapping his hands twice. Go ahead and start unloading the goods. For every box you unload, you get an extra $10. So make haste and finish this as early as possible. The downcast servants instantly got motivated as they heard his promise. They looked at the ship that was carrying 20 containers with greed and rushed to unload as much as possible. 3 hours later, all the goods had been unloaded on the port. Felix looked at the exhausted servants and said, take a 1-hour break, then pick up the goods and take them to the warehouse. For each box you deliver, you will get $10 as a reward. He then left Layla to supervise them as he went back to the hotel. Days went by slowly as Felix kept brainwashing his grandpa with information about extraterrestrials by using movies. Meanwhile, he kept training his body on a daily basis until he finally conquered the stairs, as he can now climb up and down with ease, breaking only a little sweat. On the other hand, his plan towards the island remodel was already over. The only thing he was waiting for was the arrival of the Great Chaos, so he can save his grandfather and start implementing his plan. 2024-06-15-17:50 p.m. Only 5 minutes were left before the transmission begins. Felix was sitting on the couch in the living room. He turned his head and glanced worriedly at his grandfather, who became addicted to alien genre movies. He somehow already managed to finish more than 18 movies over the period of his stay here. I probably overdid my brainwashing. Looking at his face, which is filled with joy as he saw aliens slaughter humans, I don't doubt he will feel happiness from the transmission and not fear. He peeked at his phone and saw only 5 minutes were left. Grandpa, come over here and sits next to me. Robert just shushed him and pointed at the TV. a clear sign of "don't bother me." Felix sighed and went to sit next to him. Time ticked second by second slowly until only a couple seconds were left. Felix, who always kept a confident expression on his face, couldn't help but sweat from the distress of failing his mission. If he didn't save his grandpa with all of those memories, he can honestly just commit suicide. Finally, the fateful moment had arrived. Felix counted backward in his mind: 3, 2, 1. And so it begins. Up in the air, in a public airplane that carried 300 passengers, an old man sat next to a kid who was shivering from dread of flying. The old man said kindly, "Don't worry, child. There is nothing to be afraid of since planes have 99.999% of successful flights. They are even safer than cars." So before he managed to finish his sentence, a voice was heard in his head like a decree from above. "Dear primitive humans, we are the scouting and planting crew of the Alexander Kingdom that owns 10 districts, each having hundreds of solar systems. We discovered your planet by chance when our interstellar coordinator device had a small complication. Now that we introduced ourselves properly, let's get down to business. Based on the Supremacy Games Alliance Treaty, number 12 in the Book of SGA Rules, we are obligated to explain the 3 choices that you have currently. The first choice is to submit to the Alexander Kingdom and swear eternal loyalty to our royal family, thus securing your safety from other invaders. The second choice is to refuse and get invaded and looted by our scouting fleet. And based on the primitive level of your technology, our AI calculated your chances of victory are 0.00000000001%, as the only viable way of you having a draw is by some chance the sun goes supernova, destroying both of us together. The last remaining choice is to join the Supremacy Game Alliance, which will ensure your survival if you did not break its rules. For more information about the third choice, you can only obtain it in person. You have 7 days to send someone to represent your planet to give us your final decision. You can find our temporary base in the middle of Antarctica. Here are the coordinates: 76.299965, 148.003021. We await hearing good news from you. The mind transmission will turn off now. The old man froze with blankness in his face for more than 30 seconds. No one spoke as everyone was holding their breaths deep within. Suddenly, pain coughing resounded loudly in the plane. Cough, cough. A white-haired elder gripped his chest in anguish, yet his eyes were clouded with trepidation. That cough managed to awaken everyone from their spell. Just as they wanted to ask about the transmission, a sudden collision between their plane and another one managed to rip them all apart, as flames and blood rained from the sky. A blonde-haired man was driving a truck peacefully while listening to country music. Yet, suddenly blankness assaulted him out of nowhere. Meanwhile, his truck just kept moving forward, crushing into tens of cars, who also lost control and started to collide with each other heavily. Gas tanks exploded, rising black clouds of smoke in the air. People crying and weeping as they held what left of their family members, begging for help from anyone, and calling for 911 to arrive. Unfortunately, no one answered both their calls of rescue, as the world was turned upside down, ruined in flames and destruction. Who would bother saving others when they couldn't even secure their own safety? Every country in the world, whether small or big, was in complete chaos and disarray. Presidents stood in a daze for hours, after realizing their authority and power over the masses was going to be lost, while a few ones who woke up from their daze acted with the speed of light and ordered their subordinates to contain the upcoming chaos. Not every leader in the world was incompetent. Sky Pearl Island, at the resort hotel, in the living room of the suite, Felix rushed to his grandfather's side without waiting for the transmission to finish. He held his wrist and measured his heartbeat, just like he feared. It was rising slowly, but he couldn't do anything yet. Not until the transmission finishes, since Alexander's kingdom was using a general technique from the hive race to bypass the human race weaker consciousness barrier to deliver a message. And before the process finishes, it must not be interrupted, lest the barrier cracks or, in worse cases, shatter. Felix managed to bypass the transmission control, since his soul barrier was one of the best. After all, it was created by the combination of 2 souls, and one of them was from a peak race. 30 seconds later, the transmission had ended, and Robert, whose heart pressure was rising during it, started to slowly fall back. Felix, I must have watched too many alien movies these days. I even started to hear voices in my head telling me that the Alexander Kingdom is about to invade. if we don't make a choice or some bullshit. Robert rubbed his temples with a muddled look. Felix did not dare to break the news that everything that he heard was real. He would be a fool to waste such a God-sent opportunity. All right, Grandpa, go take a rest. Enough movies from now on. They really started to affect your mental health. Sigh, I guess you are right. I am really getting old. Felix guided him to his bedroom and said, tonight you sleep here, no need to head back to your suite. I will sleep in the guest room. All right. Good night, Felix replied with a gentle smile. Good night, Grandpa. The first step was successful. Now I just need to feed him a longevity potion that will cure his heart disease and provide him with extra centuries to live. He sighed in relief while taking his phone out, planning to call Layla. Chapter 13. The plan commenced. After the line got connected, he immediately informed her to gather everyone in the hotel hall. He then hanged up and called his Aunt Mary and informed her that in 30 minutes, he will call her again to showcase something. After he got a word of approval from his aunt, who was freaking out just like the rest, he hanged up. It was finally time to start preparing the manpower needed to take advantage of the upcoming economy crash. The chaos will only last at most for 2 months before the world leaders start sharing all of the information about the universe. So he must be quick in his plan implementation. 30 minutes later, in the hotel hall, Felix stood on a chair while holding his phone on speaker, examining the terrified and shocked hotel personals in front of him. He raised his voice and began his speech that might put those servants on his side. I know everyone is still in a state of shock and confusion over the current absurdity. You probably already figured out that everyone in the entire planet has heard the transmission at the same time, which resulted in great chaos and many innocent people deaths. He paused for a few seconds to see the crowd reaction and continued at the same pace. From the choices that have been handed to us humans, the third option is the most feasible. I trust in the world leaders to make the right decision and not declare war with them. This means the fear of unknown future should be gone by now, and those who do not have fear clouding their eyes and judgment will see only opportunities to take advantage of. He then smiled gently to ease their tension and said with temptation, but not everyone will see that far ahead. People will only see what's near them, and now what they see is a hopeless situation, where their lives are in the hands of their country leaders, who they never trusted or loved, and also in the hands of the invading race, who can kill them anytime they wished for. He pointed a finger in his head and acted worriedly. In the citizens' heads right now, is there going to be another transmission? What if I was driving when it arrives? Won't I just die? He stopped his act and continued his speech with a confident smile. So they will buy or loot basic necessities like food and water, and hide in their homes until the information about the situation is clear to them. This will offset a huge economical change, since every commoner in the entire world would only think about getting as much food to survive. Thus they will throw all their money and precious jewelry at it. This will result in prices of luxury items to fall down sharply, as the market will be flooded with them. Ads by PubFuture. This is just one of many opportunities I mentioned. More will come. The only question left is, are you guys going to seize them with me, or pass it due to momentary lapse of judgment? He concluded his speech with a question that could decide their fate. The servants who heard what Felix said started to pant, as their eyes were slowly being cleared from the confusion, and what replaced it was zeal for a better future, to improve their status. No one wanted to be a servant or handyman forever. Everyone wanted to strike rich and be part of the 1%. Sadly, the world resources had already been split apart without a crumble for them to pick after. But now, there was a whole new pie in front of them. It's time to stop thinking and fearing and just do it. And so with zealous expressions, everyone cheered with arms raised in the air after seeing a new bright future. Nothing would stop them from getting rich. Felix smiled as he observed everyone's excitement. He let them blow off steam and the negative emotions that were filling their minds. 2 minutes later, the servants calmed down and said while bowing in respect towards Felix, "Please guide us, young master. For today we won't do anything, as the chaos has just started. But after 7 days, when the world leaders make their decision, we will make our move, since I believe that the leaders will hoard the information first to obtain some benefits from the commoners as well." He quickly added after seeing their disgruntled faces, "But I doubt they will go too far, since no matter what choice they make, they will have to start planning the planet future, and that will drain them from their time and energy to care about other things. And that's when we strike. I will use $20 million to buy all the luxury resources needed to remodel the resort hotel." He then named them one by one under their greedy eyes. "I want gold, silver, gems, marbles, and the finest wood. I don't care if it's ebony wood or sandalwood. I want them all. Then when we secure all the precious materials, we can start buying construction materials. He switched his vision to his phone, where his aunt was listening the whole time with concentration. Aunt, I need from you to use your contacts and get us all of those materials, then send them by shipments. I will also need a huge amount of manpower, handyman, craftsmen, architectural engineers, managers, doctors, airport specialists, all of those talents. Promise them they will move to a safe island away from the mess, where food is plenty and free. But only do so after we secured the materials, alright? He asked to see if she understood his instructions. Aunt Mary answered with reminiscing in her voice, "Little Felix, your mother will be proud of you. If she saw what have you become." Then she spoke firmly. "Leave it to me. I will make sure our operation to be discreet, without anyone knowing about it. The less competition, the more we obtain." The servants realized that there was a hint of threat in her tone, probably at them to not spread the information. They were not going to do so anyway, if Felix just went ahead alone and tried to devour all the precious materials. The servants would get greedy over not being able to touch them. They will either steal them while hidden or sell the information to his cousins, who would love to do the same as him. But now that he shared, it meant they were all in it together. They will get part of the upcoming shipments, and anyone who greed over what belongs to them will not be tolerated. Felix switched his vision to them and instructed, "Your job is going to be the hardest, since I trust only you guys to keep watch over the upcoming manpower." He warned, "They will try their best to steal precious materials, and your job is to supervise them every day and punish them if they went out of line. If the island remodeling was successful, it will turn into the fanciest island in the world, and only elites will be allowed in it. And your reward after all of this is 5% shares of the hotel profit. The family will give me 49% when I successfully revive this impossible project. And if everything went well, you can expect the island to be famous in the world, with profits exceeding tens of billions each year." This meant 5% will give you at least $100 million each year. But this 5% is going to split based on the contribution during the process of building and remodeling. If you do well, you can even obtain a full 1% while others share 4%. But if you were caught stealing, you will be thrown in jail. Forget about the 5%, you will get jack shit. He then said coldly, "I gave you a way out of your social status, so don't you dare disappoint me or betray my goodwill. That's it. For now, go take some rest, it's getting late. We will continue the details tomorrow." He yawned with a hand covering his mouth and excused them. "Good night." The servants, bodyguards, and maids just stood there for a while, frozen with all the information that was handed to them. Then one by one they bowed deeply in the direction of Felix while saying in unison, "Thank you, young master, and good night." In the sweet living room, "You did well, little Felix. Your plan might not be flawless, as there are always some bad apples or loopholes, but at least it's going to work. By adding them to your plan and sharing some profit with them, you made them feel like they are going to work for themselves, and not for you. This will greatly limit their greed when the shipments start to arrive, since no one would steal from himself." Felix replied nonchalantly, "You give me too much credit, Auntie. It's just a standard stick and carrot style plan. Anyone can think of it." Without waiting for his aunt to keep complimenting him, he cut her off with a grave tone. "Andy, what do you think about the transmission?" His aunt replied with a hint of dread in her voice. "I don't know, this is too sudden. We were just living peacefully in our bubble." But no one expected it to explode without a warning. Everyone was caught by surprise. "I bet your family board of elders is holding an emergency meeting to address their plan for the future." She added with a disheartened sigh, "Too bad it's pointless. As long as no information about the entity that is living in Antarctica is revealed, any plan for the future is futile. Don't worry. My senses are telling me that this is a huge opportunity for planet Earth. We were fighting for a pathetic amount of resources every single day, declaring wars for territory, and more messed up things. All of those, I believe, will be solved if we manage to absorb the aliens' knowledge about the universe and started our own interstellar colonization just like them." Aunt Mary could only put her faith in his words and hope that everything works out just like he claimed. Chapter 14: The Plan Outline. "All right, Auntie, I am going to sleep now. I will call you tomorrow to finalize the details of our plan." "Good night, dear. I will wait for your call." Felix said good night back and hanged up. He then went toward his bedroom to check on his grandfather, as well as get his pajamas from the closet. After measuring his grandpa's heartbeat and seeing that it was still stable, he took his pajamas and went to sleep in the guest room. Next morning 10 a.m., Felix woke up and headed to the bathroom to take care of his hygiene as always. But this time he found his grandfather sitting on the toilet chair and watching the news from his phone. Felix's heart skipped a beat at this sight, as he thought his grandfather's blood pressure will rise when he sees the chaos and disasters that were happening outside the island. Felix approached him and asked stiffly, "What are you watching there, Grandpa?" "Oh, just some news about how everyone heard the same transmission as me last night. It really was not a hallucination. Earth was truly found by another race and cornered to such a degree." He then faced Felix and asked, "Boy, why did you lie to me yesterday? It seems like you also heard the decree, but acted like nothing was wrong." Felix looked at him with an annoyed expression. "It was to save you, old geezer. If I acted surprised or showed fear, you will realize that it was the real deal. I had no idea how would you react, whether in fear or anger. All I know is that no matter how you react, your heart will find it difficult to handle the pressure that will arrive from the blood rush." He shook his head lightly and added, "I was not willing to take any risks. And you should feel elated being here isolated from everyone. I read news about old men that have the same condition as you died like flies when the transmission was over." Robert smiled warmly after hearing Felix's reason, as he figured so as well. "Thank you, son, I appreciate the thought. But you did not have to worry. Is it not just an alien invasion? I already watched more than 20 movies, and in every one of them, humans won." He gave Felix double thumbs up and added, "And I have faith that we will win in this one as well." Suddenly, he touched his ass with a shiver and said, "Now close the bathroom door. My ass is getting wrinkly from the wind." Felix obeyed with half-smile on his face. He realized that he overdid his brainwashing quite a bit after hearing that his grandfather had faith in humans emerging victorious if they went to war. Unfortunately, that sounded like a joke in Felix's ears, as he knew that humans' most prized weapons, nuclear bombs, were merely toys in the eyes of the human kingdoms outside. A single cheap, outdated device can nullify them completely, turning them into worthless junk. Whatever, as long as he is not in danger. Let him think what he wants. He then headed towards the bathroom in the next suite. In the hotel cafeteria, Felix was laying down instructions to Layla and Jack, who was sitting next to him, as well as his aunt, who was using Facecam, listening to Felix in concentration. "Auntie, you will handle the process of obtaining as many resources as possible outside the island, since it's not going to be just us who will think far ahead. There are many geniuses like a father who had a fearsome profit sense. They would only rely on those senses to take gambles and not knowledge. So this is a race to see who can hoard as many resources as possible until the release of information by the leaders." He stopped for a quick juice sip and continued confidently, "I will make a prediction here and say that it will take from 1 month to 3 months before the chaos settles. So buy and keep buying until my $20 million runs out. If only the family didn't forbid taking a loan, and only using the budget they gave us, I would have spent more than 50 million. He sighed in dejection over losing more profit due to this stupid rule to stop them from cheating. His aunt replied, "All right, when it comes to gathering resources, you have nothing to worry about. I live and breathe in this business. I will take care of your 20 million of shipments first before I start buying using my own money. Also, you can beat those little rascals who bullied you when you were young." Felix mused in his mind, "Auntie, you got it all wrong. I was the one bullying them. The poor things just allied to defend themselves." But he did not dare say it out loud, as he knew that she adored him since he was a little kid, treating him just like her son, due to her being barren, not able to have kids. "Thank you, Auntie. I can always count on you." He drank another gulp and turned his head towards Layla and instructed her, "You will take care of the logistics, from detailing the times of each shipment arrival to detailing how many precious materials in a box. The figures need to be close to the ideal number, since some stones will be lost in one way or another." He paused to let her digest his orders, as he does not want to overwhelm her. A few seconds later he carried on, "Your second mission is to hire warehouse managers. You will pick them from the batch of manpower that will arrive. You can choose who you see fit as your subordinates from the servants, and mark each of their contributions." He turned his head to Jack, who was waiting for his instruction while holding his breath in anticipation. "As for you, Jack, you will take care of the security of the island, and the smoothness of unloading the shipments and delivering them to the warehouses. You can hire strong armed men to protect those warehouses. Auntie will deal with smuggling the weapons outside the states. You can also pick subordinates to assist you in dealing with those matters." After he finished his instructions, he pointed at himself and said, "As for me, I will take care of the remodeling of the island. I will need architectural engineers to create a solid design that can impress me. I will also supervise the makings of tables and chairs by the craftsmen. Everything needs to be in order, so we can remodel the entire island in a maximum period of 2 years. It's going to be hard, but not impossible. Felix cleaned his mouth with a handkerchief and added, "This is the overall plan. For now, we will adapt as new complications start to arise. Go pick your subordinates and train them on how to be tough. We don't want outsiders to walk all over them." He then picked his phone and left while saying, "I will call you when I need you." In the suite, in front of the TV, Felix and Robert were watching the news about the chaos that was happening currently in America. "Did you call your buddies? None of them died, right?" Felix suddenly asked. "Yes, no one died," he continued dejectedly. "Unfortunately, Benjamin also survived. They told me he passed out when he drank too much and heard the transmission, but his body did not react much. Lucky bastard. He should have been dead for always defaming my good character." Felix ignored his grandfather's tantrum and questioned, "I see, it's good thing that they survived. Now about the family situation. Did they call you to inform you of its state?" "Yes, they called me this morning. We lost one elder in the family board. He was doing an operation on his heart when the transmission struck. They told me the main surgeon cut the wrong artery due to lacking focus and stability." He paused, "And they requested me to rush back to replace his spot temporary, until they find another one. This time don't retire from the post, Grandpa. Just remain in it for a bit. With the current messy situation, the family really needs your leading wisdom. Stop flattering me, you rascal. You just want me there again to wipe your ass when you make a mess, don't you?" Robert chuckled. "Not this time, Grandpa. You will soon realize your grandson's greatness and see that you were not scammed by me having your bloodline." Robert ignored Felix's promise, as bragging was always his grandson's greatest talent. He was already numb to his promises. Soon, he turned off the TV as the only news on it was about the millions of deaths worldwide, and two morons trying to analyze the already simplified transmission that said kneel or die or join an alliance. "All right, I will get dressed. I'm leaving in 1 hour. Don't burn the hotel when I am gone." Felix just chuckled and said, "Don't worry when you see it again. It will be lit on fire." In his thoughts of magnificence, Robert glared at him and went to his suite to change. Chapter 15: The United Nations Decision. 5 days later, inside the United Nations meeting, 195 presidents and kings of kingdoms such as Morocco, and representatives of countries who lost their presidents during the transmission, were sitting in chairs and looking at the podium platform in front of them, like they were in a theater stage. The reason they gathered here in person, even though they could just send their diplomatic secretaries, was to show some form of power and courage towards their invaders, as well as their people. Sadly, no one gave a shit about their political gimmick. They just wanted to know what's their decision. Moroccan king said unhurriedly near the microphone of his seat, "We already scouted the area in the coordination they gave us, and the images were clear enough, showing a humongous spaceship parked there." He then asked with suppressed fury, "The only question I have is how the hell they managed to land there without us knowing." The president of Germany touched her microphone lightly, entailing her desire to speak. She then added her own opinion on the matter intelligently. "Probably the only reason we managed to see their ship in the first place is because they allowed us to. Such an advanced gap in technology needs centuries to millennia of hard work to close. Plus, who knows if that is all they have or just a small spaceship from their fleet." She paused for a few seconds to see her peers' reactions, and just as she wanted, the majority of them nodded their heads in approval. She took advantage of this chance and pushed her agenda further. "This is probably used to bait us into launching an attack, so we give them a reason to invade us without them breaking the Supremacy Games Alliance treaty that they mentioned before. So I believe it is in our best interest if we join their kingdom and absorb what we can, and then when we reach their power, we revolt." She took a deep breath and said her final vote. "I vote for choosing the first option." The president of North Korea retorted indifferently, "Everything you said was but speculations. Who knows if they are just acting tough on the outside to scare us into surrendering without fighting. I suggest launching an ambush on their base using 20 nuclear bombs. Such powerful force will certainly destroy them to oblivion." No one interrupted him or disagreed. They just left him to say his piece. "If they only had that ship, we would have won. But if they had a fleet, as you say, there is nothing to worry about, since we had carefully created hundreds of thousands of nuclear bombs throughout the years. And if we united and combined our nuclear heads, we have a high chance of winning." He glanced around him and found that the majority were shaking their heads in disagreement with his strategy. His forehead squirmed with veins from fury after seeing their coward-like behavior. He suddenly stood up and banged the table loudly, while adding in agitation, "We did not make those bombs just to sit around in the warehouses collecting dust. We were too afraid to use them on each other for health reasons. But now our existence is being threatened by invaders. So if not now, then when, goddammit?" He roared the last part like a madman. Yet some presidents were nodding their heads in his favor. He calmed himself down and fixed his suite, then sat back and said his final vote. "I vote for the second option." Immediately after, the two sides began to argue about their points loudly, like they were in a parliament assembly, each presenting the advantages of their choice. Yet, before long they get dismissed by the opposite side. The president of Japan stared at this barbaric sight and stood up with his microphone. He hit the head of it lightly, making ear-piercing noises to attract their attention. After seeing that everyone quieted down, he informed them cool-headed about the forgotten third choice. "To be honest, you guys already know deep down that this is a hopeless war. They know everything about us from our technology to our cultures. And I bet that they probably did a full data scan on our internet and hacked into our most classified secrets." Ads by PubFuture. The world leaders sat back and listened to his respectful opinion without interrupting. The president of Japan continued after seeing the sight. "For a race like them to be able to do interstellar travel, they wouldn't find it difficult breaking into our primitives' firewalls. They are in the dark hiding and watching every move we make, while we have no idea who they are and how they look like. Even their words of controlling 10 districts in outer space, take it with a grain of salt. We do not know if it is real, or they are just lying to make us submit and join their ranks." He sighed disheartened and carried on his final deduction, while raising one finger. "From this, we can easily conclude that we never had three choices in the first place. We had only one, and that is joining the Supremacy Games Alliance, which they are also part of, since they could have invaded us with ease, but didn't due to some treaty of the alliance. This signifies only one fact, and that is the alliance is extremely powerful and not to be provoked. One last note, since they are part of it, it also means it gives rewards and benefits too hard to miss even for them. Don't even mention us." After saying his piece, he sat down composedly, letting them digest his words before the true voting begins. The spokesperson did not keep them waiting and immediately informed them, "It is time to cast your votes. You have 30 minutes to think carefully. Keep in mind that each one can only vote once. The choice that has the highest votes will be applied, period." Half an hour was not really a long duration for such a large-scale decision, but time was not their ally in this situation. 30 minutes later, the spokesperson read the final results from a card he was holding. "Your votes have been cast and counted. The final result is the first choice with a vote count of 25 countries, the second choice with a vote of 34 countries, and finally the third choice with a vote count of 130 countries. The last remaining 6 countries abstracted from voting. It has been officially decided that planet Earth will be joining the alliance." Bang! The gavel sound of the spokesperson marked the final decision. Loud clapping sounds echoed in the meeting hall as presidents celebrated, avoiding a massacre if they went into war with those madmen. The President of America gave an extra suggestion to the celebrating world leaders. "I suggest sending the spokesperson as our representative to declare our decision, and also to scout the aliens on a deeper level. If they were not as strong as we assumed, we can give full authority to the spokesperson to choose the second option." The majority of the leaders nodded their heads in approval, as they found it reasonable, and so the dumbfounded spokesperson, who was dealing with the whole situation nonchalantly, was decided to serve as their scapegoat and declare their decision. In the middle of Antarctica, an enormous ship that had the same height as the famous Burj Khalifa, and wide enough to hold 20 football stadiums, submerged itself within the ice like it was always there. A military green helicopter landed gently near the spaceship. Shortly after, a person wearing thick clothes like a bear came out of the helicopter and walked step by step towards the spaceship that had no windows or entrances. It was covered with a special dark alloy never seen before on Earth, making the entire ship resemble a sleeping beast. The man thought to himself while shivering from either cold or fear, "What the hell am I doing here? Couldn't they just send anyone? Who did I offend to deserve this?" He raised his head and looked up, yet he still couldn't see the top of the ship. If this was just a ship of a scouting team, their army ships must be the size of a meteor. How are we supposed to win if we fought? His contemplation was suddenly interrupted by a set of moving stairs that dropped near his feet, leading to a small open door. As he saw the moving stairs, he mused, We have the same ones in the malls. Maybe the gap is not that bad. Unfortunately, the moment he stepped on the staircase, he found himself inside the ship with a blink of an eye. Never mind what I said. He started to examine the interior of the ship with piercing eyes. Yet, he did not see a single thing as everything was dark due to the alloy. As he began to wonder what he was supposed to do, lights suddenly were turned on one by one from the gaps of the alloy, brightening the ship gradually. He had to close his eyes, as the sudden brightness was too much for him to handle. 30 seconds later, his eyelids quivered, as he attempted to open his eyes slowly to adapt. Yet he got instantly scared shitless after seeing 3 humans standing 1 meter in front of him. The one in the middle smiled and spoke with a weird language that was later translated somehow by his bracelet. "Welcome, my friend. We waited for quite a bit for you guys to send someone. At least I hope you brought some good news to us." The spokesperson, who expected to see green little things with big brains, or big eyes with no eyebrows, was shocked to realize they were humans just like them with a few minor differences, like the coiled horns extending from their shoulder blades. "This is even better, only humans can understand each other. This will make our negotiation passes smoothly." It didn't take much for his political personality to kick in and gain control over his emotions. "Dear visitors from outside the Earth, I welcome you to our humble planet." He bowed respectfully while holding his hands above his head making peace signs. He has no clue what their culture was, so he just did this retarded combination. The 3 invaders eyed him with amusement, as they already read what they could on the Earthlings' current culture, while the things they didn't know, the AI reminded them of. And right now the AI says it has no idea what the hell he meant by his actions. The one in the middle kept doing the talking while the other 2 just observed silently from the side. "No need for formalities. We are all part of the great human race that rules the entire Milky Way galaxy." The spokesperson gulped a mouthful as he heard this, the entire galaxy. What the hell? How many humans are out there then? A couple of trillions or even quadrillion? He spoke with a shaky voice. Right. We are all part of the human race. So I hope you will be able to provide us with the information necessary about the Supremacy Games Alliance, lest we make the wrong decision. They looked at him with a hidden glint, and asked him with a frigid tone, "So you mean by joining us, you're making a bad decision?" Dissatisfied, one of them added unpleasantly, "I see. We came here in peace and acted based on the rules, respecting your culture and your free will. And this how you treat us?" The spokesperson was not a fool, as he quickly figured out their hidden agenda based on their words. He knew that if he failed to provide a solid explanation, they will invade or force them to kneel without suffering the consequences, by relying on that feeble moral reason. Feeble or not, it was still a reason to launch an attack. "You misunderstood me, my dear guests. What I really meant was that only by having knowledge about the alliance that your kingdom is part of, can we understand more about your greatness and strength, to not make a foolish decision of declaring war on your lofty race." The spokesperson's ass-kissing ability that helped him reach his current position did not fail to deliver as the invader in the middle switched back to his polite persona, after realizing he was dealing with a tough nut to crack. "Of course, only by knowing everything would you find that you Earthlings are but the weakest bunch in the Milky Way." He then patted the spokesperson's shoulder and instructed him indifferently, "Follow me so I can enlighten your eyes about the cosmic difference between us and your race." Chapter 16: The Universal Virtual Reality. Even though he said to follow him, they didn't actually need to walk, as the ground started moving by itself, taking them forward speedily. The spokesperson was scared that he was going to be thrown away due to their speed, but soon he found out that he couldn't move his body at all. It's like his legs were locked tightly by the ground. 5 minutes later, they reached their destination. The spokesperson felt like he was about to throw up, but he managed to swallow it just before so with a disgusted expression, just to not lose face in front of his hosts. "AI creates 2 chairs for us and send extra AP bracelet, please, as you command, Chief." Quickly, 2 chairs manifested of the dark alloy like it was a living being. The chief said embarrassingly, "I still have not introduced myself properly. My name is Killa, chief of the scouting and planting crew in Alexander's kingdom. Our jobs are to scout for life forms, but mainly to plant the UVR tower signals around the undiscovered solar systems." He asked, "How about you? Nice to meet you. I am Jacob Miller, the current spokesperson for the United Nations, and I am here to represent them all." The spokesperson introduced himself as well while extending his hand for a handshake. The chief didn't refuse his handshake. "Good, since they sent you, it meant you are good enough. All right, enough chit-chat. your AP bracelet has arrived. Killa sat on his chair and took one small bracelet that fits perfectly in humans' wrists from a pocket in the dark alloy chair. He then explained with admiration what this tiny device can do. This called the all-purposes device, or in short AP bracelet. It has multiple features such as phone, stream, scanner, AI assistance, spatial cards, and most importantly, it is the key to enter the UVR. Come on, sit down next to me and wear it. It will bind with your consciousness, so only you can use it. Jacob was quite hesitant to wear it, since he had no idea if what Killa said was right or just bullshit, and this bracelet was but an enslaving device. Killa saw his hesitation and smiled, seeing it as a normal reaction. I know you are wary of me, but don't be. I have no reason to harm you or your planet. At least not until you make your choice. He shrugged his shoulders and continued with a disgruntled expression. This is one of the disadvantages of being part of the Alliance. You must always adhere to its strict rules or else face extermination. So just wear it, and you will obtain all the knowledge you seek. Jacob relaxed as he realized that even if the bracelet was an enslaving device, he will still wear it, since anything he did or said could be used against him and his planet. So, he took it from Killa and wore it around his wrist, then sat down next to him. Killa explained how to use it properly. First, you need to connect your consciousness with it. To do so, you just need to put its screen in front of your eyes and call in your Mind Queen AI. Then the bracelet will do the rest. Nervous and agitated, Jacob did as he was told and put the screen in front of his eyes. He took a deep breath and called Queen AI. Instantly, his vision was lost, as he laid on the chair like his soul was ripped from his body. 10 seconds later, welcome Sir Jacob. Your AP bracelet has been successfully bounded with your consciousness. From now on, only you can use the features of your device. If you want to know their details, you can ask me. Jacob opened his eyes to a cold, monotonous voice of a woman. He looked around him and saw that he was sitting in a white chair, in a white room. Everything was pure milky white, even his clothes. Who are you, and where did you take me? He asked nervously. The cold woman faithfully answered, I am the Queen AI, the one responsible over the connection of the entire UVR platform around the universe. I exist to serve it by following its rules. As for this place, it's your own chamber in the UVR. You can modify the decor as you wish. But this service is not free. Jacob just sat there awestruck, feeling like he was in a sci-fi movie after hearing her explanation. Suddenly, he slapped his face as hard as possible, believing that since he was in virtual reality, his senses won't be as responsive as in reality. Sadly, a loud smack echoed in the room, followed by a long wail. Ay. Jacob held his slapped cheek with tears and snot mixed together, turning his already ugly face into worse. What the hell? Did my slap feel more painful than in real life? Or this is just because I never got slapped this hard before? The Queen AI helped him understand better by explaining. The senses are 100% simulated, so everything that you feel in the real world will be felt here as well. I see, the civilization outside is truly millions of years ahead of us. If we could get this kind of technology and be connected to the universe, we would enter into a whole new era. He rubbed his red cheek and asked, Killa outside told me that all the information I seek is here. How do I obtain them exactly? Since this is your first time connecting to the UVR, do you want to listen to the universe history introduction? Yes, please, he answered eagerly. A moment later, the white room exploded with light, leaving Jacob in the infinite universe with galaxies and stars all around him. He looked at this beautiful scene in fascination and listened to the AI history introduction for dummies. Current time period, 500 years before the creation of the Supremacy games. 1 million years ago. The present era was called the Dark Ages. Every race in the universe followed a simple rule. Only the strongest were allowed to survive. Each new planet found with a hint of life on got invaded without questions asked. If the aboriginals of the said planet were strong enough, they survive. If they were weak, they get either exterminated or enslaved. There were no rules and no laws. Wars were everywhere and hate filled every race. This all changed when the metal race, who seeks the truth of the universe as their only path, decided to intervene and stop those random wars that affected their introvert lives. They spend the majority of their time holed up inside their research labs creating devices, technologies, and weapons to ease their endless curiosity. But they were constantly being interrupted during their research by foolish races who wanted to plunder their creations. They fought them time and time again, until the metal race finally snapped and had enough with those random barbaric wars. So they decided to share their virtual reality system. that had 100% simulation with those races, hoping that they could duke it out inside the VR and leave them alone. But the universe was boundless, and it was almost impossible to connect everything together to enter the VR. This dilemma raised their research spirit to new heights, making them use every method and way to solve it. However, their attempts soon turned out to be futile, just as they began to lose hope on this massive project. One researcher goes by the IDX-1S994, or in human language Max, found a way to solve this problem when he was watching the hive race communicate with each other using their innate talent, which was called the hive network, as each species in the hive race could join this network and at the same time act as a signal tower, spreading the connection in a large radius around them. By relying on their receptors, Max got inspired by this spiritual network and figured out that if they could imitate it to create their own VR network around the universe, their problem would cease to exist. He then proposed this idea to the Empress of the Metal Race AIO-15XL, or Emily, who in turn managed to contact the Hive Race's Empress Scarlet for collaboration. After seeing the feasibility of his idea, Empress Scarlet agreed to her offer, as by creating this VR, she would be able to extend her Hive network even further when she connects the two networks after its creation. And so, by fusing the peak technology of the Metal Race and peak spirituality of the Hive Race, signal towers that acted as workers in the Hive Race context were created and spread around the universe. Then they created a powerful Queen AI that had processing power only below the Metal Empress to control those tower signals and connect them with herself. But soon they figured out that the tower signals were still flawed, as they found that an infinite number of signal towers would be required to connect the universe together. Hence, the Metal Race did what they knew best, and that was to research a way to remove this limitation once and for all. After 4 centuries and 60 years of trials and errors, they finally found a way to upgrade their UVR signal system. They discovered that the majority of life forms' consciousness resembled the Hive Race inner spirit, in the way of their ability to access it and control it. This discovery helped them modify the innate talent of the Hive Race that was used to enter the Hive network to a general technique that could be taught and learned by anyone who could access his consciousness. This way, a being could enjoy connecting to the UVR everywhere in the universe, as well as spread the network connection in a large radius around him for those who can't access their consciousness. Or, in the words, commoners, the creation of this technique marked the true rise of the UVR, since every race realized the benefits of connecting with each other, no matter the distance. Additionally, they could create whatever they desired, as well as fight to their heart content with 100% realism. And so, they stormed the Metal Race asking for access. But the Metal Race gave them 2 mandatory conditions to sign if they wanted to enjoy the services of their network. The first one was to earn a 4% profit from each transaction that was happening in the UVR, 2% for them and 2% for the Hive Race, based on the premise that they were the creators. The second condition was to simply stay as far as possible from their main galaxy, so they could research in peace without their constant harassment. Every race agreed, of course, as they saw only benefits in doing so. But the moment they realized that an AI queen had control of the entire UVR, or in other words, control over their consciousness, they laid their own heavy rules to limit the power of the queen, to forbid her from acting on her own interest or any race interest in that sense, and to follow only the UVR rulebook, which they spent years later to create. Thus the Queen AI became autonomous, acting only by the rules, making her the greatest leader and judge to any situation that happened inside the UVR. 1 year before the creation of the Supremacy games, the UVR had grown into a cosmic spider web that snared anyone who entered it, without the ability to escape its grasp anymore. Some people even decided to live permanently inside the UVR, not caring about their real lives anymore. During those years of operation, the Queen AI was not lazing around, as she managed to gather a huge amount of data on the race's power systems, paths, legacies, techniques, bloodline abilities, etc. Based on that massive data, she proposed an idea to every race leader within the UVR. That idea gave birth to the greatest entertainment platform in the universe, the Supremacy Games. Chapter 17: The Supremacy Games Alliance. The idea was to create a platform where all of those wars will be held and be viewed by an audience who will gladly pay for tickets to see the bloodshed in front of them. The race leaders saw no reason not to approve, since if they were going to fight no matter what, then why not obtain some tips while doing so? Too bad they underestimated the commoners' craziness over anything that may make their boring and routine lives a little bit more entertaining. And so, the platform exploded with popularity. The race leaders who were planning to earn only some tips from the spectators started to get slammed with money they never thought was possible to be earned this fast and easily. The mere sight of such easy windfall from just some viewership over their daily skirmishes brightened their eyes with greed for more. They tried every method they know of to make their content more entertaining and unique to grab the attention of a larger base of fans. Because of that, they managed to evolve as time passes from using random wars and skirmishes between their soldiers to making the platform open for everyone to register and participate in entertaining deadly games, using multiple formats, such as sports, puzzles, battles, tournaments, and more. The creation of this variety pushed the Supremacy games into the peak of popularity within the UVR, surmounting movies, animations, and games. Gone were the days of wars without a set of rules. Gone were the days of fights between races due to resources or for territory. Now, with the existence of Supremacy games, everything could be solved there without harming their foundation in real life. The moment the Supremacy Games platform began to be used this way, every race believed that more money and resources could be earned if they just made an alliance that accepts only races that were using the platform. This way they could solve their political problems that arise between each other fair and square, without the losing party complainant, plus training their juniors constantly using the games, and at the same time earning a massive amount of money from the happy spectators all over the universe, thus hitting 4 birds with 1 stone. The Alliance emergence marked the true beginning of the Supremacy Games' dominance over everyone. That was 1 million years ago. The platform has kept evolving ever since, making new rules and laws to help the weak races and new planets, such as planet Earth, to have a place inside this ruthless universe. There were currently more than 550 rules and laws within Supremacy Games Alliance and the UVR. Any abuser of those rules would face a merciless punishment, no matter his race or his social status. This marks the ending of the introduction to the universe. Do you want to listen to intermediate public information now, Sir Jacob? Queen AI ended her introduction and asked Jacob, who went through a journey in the UVR, seeing the races fighting in wars using superpowers he thought were only in fantasies, and hearing the information about the creation of the UVR as well as SGA, made him realize that Earthlings had truly come across the greatest opportunity of their existence. And if they missed it, it would be the biggest joke in the universe. In his head, he already knew that Earthlings were lucky to be found during the era of SGA. Otherwise, they would have been invaded the moment they got discovered. No questions asked. He soon woke up from his momentary daze and replied, "No, not for now. I kept Killa waiting for more than enough. It's time to give him my planet final decision. As you command, you will be ejected from the UVR network in 3 seconds. 3 seconds exactly." Jacob closed eyes, unsealed moderately. "So how did you find the information you obtained? Any questions you have about them? I can do you a favor and answer them now," Killa asked warmly after seeing that Jacob had logged out. "Fascinating and mind-blowing. You were right, my eyes were truly enlightened, and I hope to enlighten my planet as well," Jacob replied with a polite tone. However, it did not last long before he informed Killa of his planet's decision firmly. "That's why I will go straight to the point and say that our final choice and decision is to join the Alliance." Jacob stared at Killa composedly as he said his planet choice. Meanwhile, his mind was an utter mess. So how is he going to respond? Is he going to attack me out of anger, or just ignore the Earthlings' decision and invade anyway? "I see, we figured so as well from the information we obtained from your classified files on your countries. You would either go to war or choose the lesser evil, which in this case the SGA. Killa did not show a single ounce of disappointment, as he already expected much from this planet. He shrugged his shoulders and added, "Well, it does not matter much for us anyway, whether you choose us or the Alliance, since we will obtain benefits both ways. If you chose the Alexander Kingdom, you would have obtained our protection from other races' invasions, but you will need to provide yearly tributes in return. However, if you chose the Alliance, we will get the recommendation rewards, since we are the ones who found you as well as gave you the choice of joining the SGA." He chuckled lightly after seeing the stiff expression on Jacob. "So relax your nervousness. Your heartbeats are echoing in the ship," Jacob stiffly asked. "So that's it. No invasion or looting from being humiliated in our planet. Was I thinking too badly of you guys or what?" Killa and the other 2 laughed out loud and jokingly reprimanded him. "You moron. Why would we bully small planet like yours? First, we are not savages who kill anyone who offends us. We are humans for God's sake. We operate only based on benefits. and your planet has zero benefits to provide us. He patted Jacob's shoulders while wiping tears from his eyes, after not laughing this hard for a while, and continued, "You guys are weak as hell. Plus your planet does not have any elemental materials. The only good thing about your planet is the gentle atmosphere that will make it a good tourist destination. So we have no reason to bully you. Just relax and ask away any question you have. My crew is about to finish the signal tower plantation. We will leave as soon as they finish." Jacob got quite embarrassed after hearing their explanation. It turned out that they overestimated themselves too much. But still, he sighed in relief, as this was much better than he assumed. "Thank you for giving us this opportunity. We Earthlings will always be grateful for Alexander's kingdom." He paused for a second and said, "As for my questions, I do have quite a few. Firstly, you said the crew has almost finished planting the signal tower for the UVR, but the Queen told me that it is quite an outdated way of connecting to the UVR, as the general technique can allow anyone to connect, as well as provide a signal for others. I wonder why are you even doing so?" he asked curiously. "Oh yes, this question is quite popular among the planets we discovered. Well, the answer is simply due to you guys not having the ability to connect to your consciousness first, since to be able to learn a general technique, you must first awaken successfully to get access to your consciousness. Only then will you be able to learn it and connect to the network without the use of the signal towers. But for your planet who had not a single awakened, the tower signal is a must at the start." He smiled and added, "That's why the moment we found you, we started to build it on your moon. As to whether you joined Alexander's kingdom or the SGA, you will need it to access the UVR." Jacob thanked them passionately for the signal tower, and decided to take advantage of this precious opportunity to gain as much information as possible. "Thank you for clearing my doubts, but I still have more to ask. I hope I am not being nonsense to you guys. Go ahead. It is the job of every human to enlighten his brother and race, since we only have each other to rely on in this dog-eat-dog universe." Killa smiled warmly and suggested, "So just feel free to ask all your questions together. I will answer them one by one." Without further ado, Jacob fired everything at once, starting off by asking about how were they supposed to connect to the UVR, when the only bracelet they had was not even theirs in the first place. Without stopping, he moved on to the next one, as he wondered about how were they going to purchase and sell items in the UVR, while using their earthly currency. He paused for a bit and took a deep breath with brightened eyes, and asked the most important question he always had in his mind, since the moment he spotted those races using superpowers in the UVR. "I really want to know how can humans obtain superpowers, like the other races?" Chapter 18, Joining the SGA. Killa replied to all of his questions at once as well, by answering both the first and second question together. Since they were connected, he explained that Earthlings' currencies were not useless inside the UVR, as if they managed to make their planet unique somehow, it would draw people's attention towards them and trade their Supremacy coins, which was the common currency in the alliance, with theirs. The trade between the currencies would depend on how Earthlings managed their planet's popularity. The easiest and fastest way to do so was by participating in the games and getting a good ranking. But that was just an overall solution for the planet. As for individuals, families, companies, or such, they could just invest in business opportunities in the UVR using loans. He quickly moved on to the AP bracelets situation. He clarified that their planet would get a 60% discount on their first year of purchase from any shop they visited, as this was part of the SGA rules. He pointed his finger at Jacob's bracelet, and told him to take it with him, and use it to purchase the rest of the bracelets. As for your last question, I am afraid that we humans can't use their power systems and paths. Just as Jacob was about to sigh in disappointment, he heard Killa continue proudly. But we have our self-created path to gain the same powers, and we call it Bloodline Integration System. Jacob opened his mouth planning to ask eagerly about it, but Killa didn't let him do so, as he explained that all of the information concerning the Bloodline system, clans, beasts, and more basic knowledge, could be all explained by the Queen AI. After answering all of Jacob's questions, Killa decided to give him a brownie, since he quite loved the gentle atmosphere of the planet. I suggest for you guys to allow the Queen AI to get all the data about your planet, as she will trade South Carolina based on the useful data she collected from the information you gave her. Jacob did his 90-degree bow with his hands raised above his hand in peace signs, and said emotionally, "Honestly, we have nothing to pay you back on your grace. The only thing I can say is that we will always keep your assistance and pieces of advice in our hearts. Truly thank you for everything. You have been the greatest greatest invaders one can ask for. Jacob already forgot the 5 million people who died 7 days prior, as he bowed his head to Killa, as no such thing had happened. As a true bona fide politician, he sees only benefits, and at this point, he just wanted to make sure the Alexander's kingdom either becomes allies with them, or at least keep the current situation the same. So he had absolutely not a single thought in his mind to bring the misfortunes of those who died. In his eyes, every sacrifice for the well-being of Mother Earth was worth it. Don't mention it. We did what we had to. Killa glanced at his bracelet and informed Jacob dejectedly, sadly, our time together has come to an end. Our interstellar coordinator device has been fixed, as well as the planting mission has been finished. We need to carry on our journey. He walked forward and shook Jacob's hand firmly and said, "Thank you for your hospitality, and we hope we can hear from you again when your planet officially joins the Alliance." Jacob suddenly realized he had no idea how to join the SGA, so he quickly asked, "How are we supposed to join them exactly? I thought you would never ask." Killa chuckled and answered, "It's simple actually. Just enter the UVR and tell the Queen AI that you want to join the Alliance. She will do the rest." He suddenly snapped his finger and mentioned an important detail that sent a chill in Jacob's spine. "I suggest for you guys to rush the process, as the moment we found you, your coordination has been sold to the SGA and became public information. Get inside the Alliance fast for protection, lest you get invaded without questions asked by other kingdoms, as you already had been given your SGA rights by us." Before Jacob could thank them again, Killa waved his hand, and the black alloy caught Jacob's legs and took him back to the gate, just like how it brought him. Jacob didn't even complain, as he was truly in a rush to return, so he can join the Alliance and secure their safety. Every second counts. 5 minutes later, Jacob was walking towards his helicopter with a hint of fear due to the upcoming possible invasions and excitement for the future of his planet inside the UVR. "We were living in a peaceful fantasy, and it's time to wake up and fight for what's ours," he murmured while entering the helicopter. In the United Nations meeting, the presidents and kings did not head back to their countries. Rather, they stayed here waiting for the arrival of the news. Jacob spent 6 hours continuously speaking about what he saw, heard and obtained during his stay in the spaceship. He showed them the information about the UVR and the SGA, using the holographic streaming feature in his bracelet that could stream everything inside the UVR with peak quality. He already learned about every feature, function, and characteristics during his flights. The presidents, who saw and heard the same things he did, just watched with their jaw wide open and unblinking eyes at the unbelievable face of the universe, which they lived in like frogs. Jacob this time did not stop at the history introduction, but carried on to showcase all the free information about their race, ranging from how to integrate to where the resources can be found and obtained. After seeing all the information that was available, the meeting room went into chaos, as every president howled with excitement like youths towards a new era, an era that could allow the commoners to live for more than 500 years, and those who awakened to tens of thousands of years, depending on the beast bloodline they reached the peak with. All of those world leaders were close to their death, as their ages ranged from 40 to 80. They saw hope in the ways humans outside their planet used to extend their longevity, and they would do anything to obtain those methods no matter the cost. 10 minutes later, their excitement died down a bit, as they had more important things to discuss. Jacob said through his microphone, "Please, it is not the time to think of the future, but the time to join the Supremacy Games Alliance. Our coordination had become public, and we could get attacked any moment now," he suggested. "I believe it is a priority to start the process now." The leaders soon stopped their conversations as they realized the severity of the situation. The president of Russia supported him. "He is right. The sooner we finish the process, the faster we can decide the road forward, without fearing others attacking us." After obtaining their approval, Jacob informed the Queen of his planet decision to join the SGA without entering the UVR. "All right, Sir Jacob, to join the Alliance, you simply have to sign this contract that will bind your planet to the SGA for eternity. The conditions and terms are in the contract. You can take as much time as possible to read it. When you are ready to sign, just call me back." Shortly after, a holographic contract that had over 2,000 large pages materialized in front of Jacob and the leaders. Just the colossal size of the contract made them realize that to actually read it and find loopholes or unfair conditions, every lawyer within the city the meeting was being held at must rush here ASAP. 14 hours later, the leaders, who were sleeping in their chairs and some snorting with loud noises like pigs near their microphones, woke up by a thunderous cheer of celebration, as more than 80 lawyers hugged and cheered after finishing reading this contract that burnt all of their brain cells in the process of searching for any loopholes within. The fate of the entire planet laid in their hands. If they failed their jobs and missed an important detail, they would be cursed for eternity. The president of the Philippines rubbed his muddled eyes and asked, "Did you guys finish? Tell us about your findings quickly." One of the lawyers answered with respect in his eyes, as he stared at the contract like he was seeing a piece of art. "All I can say is that this is the most well-written contract I have ever seen in my 40 years of experience in this field. It has everything terms which are important get highlighted, and every condition that is severed to the planet is dyed with red color to not miss it. As for the content, it will take a lot of time to explain. The only thing we can share now is that this contract is solid without any major disadvantages for us. I can name a few advantages, such as when we join the Supremacy games, we will be given 2 years of preparation before our first game, since our planet is still weak without a single bloodliner." He paused to drink a sip of water, then continued, "A second highlighted advantage is that we have a 60% discount on buying AP bracelets, as well as a 40% discount when buying beast bloodlines that do not surpass Tier 2 and rare rank for 1 year. As for other resources, we only have a 20% discount. Third advantage is that our planet has solid protection from any large-scale invasions, and even if a kingdom declared war on us, they won't dare to attack unless we actively accept their declaration, and if we did so, we would lose alliance protection and can only fight without a complainant." He fixed his glasses and lifted his eyes from the small notebook he was reading from and said lastly, "Those are currently just 3 benefits from what we counted to be at least 15 benefits, and since we are in a rush of time, I will mention them later. For now, I will leave you to decide if we are going to sign or not." The leaders did not need to cast a vote. All they did was look at each other and then nod their heads towards Jacob, a clear sign of approval. Jacob didn't waste time as he immediately called for the Queen. "What is your decision, Sir Jacob? We choose to join. I will sign the contract in your presence now." A pen suddenly materialized in the air in front of Jacob. He took hold of it and used it to sign the contract using Earthlings as a word. Few seconds after he finished, the contract started to slowly burn, as 5 artistic words appeared in front of everyone in the meeting hall. "Welcome to Supremacy Games Alliance." Chapter 19: The Shipments' Arrival. 3 days after the United Nations joined the alliance, Felix stood near the port, observing the ships that were docking and later get unloaded by the handyman who arrived 2 days prior. Then the ship heads back to the USA to load more packages and travel here again. This process will keep happening until the 20 million budgets that he gave to his aunt runs out. Felix read the leaked news from the United Nations meeting from his phone composedly. The news entailed with solid evidence that the world leaders came to an agreement and chose the third option, which was joining the SGA. Unfortunately, that was everything that was leaked. There were no details on the process itself or information about the alliance. This lack of intel caused the citizens to remain in their houses, not daring to step outside. They already bought or plundered months of necessity stock, so they found no reason to risk heading outside during this chaotic period that froze the police system and even the governance. After all, the streets were now filled with rapists, thieves, murderers, and all kinds of psychopathic individuals who took advantage of the society crash to let their inner madness reign freely, pushing some citizens to even build a small-sized bunker to hide in. Before the system gets back on track, no one will step outside, causing the economical crash to remain for a long period. Felix sighed in relief after seeing the commoners' reactions, as this meant that the timeline was still heading towards the right direction, and his actions did not make a huge difference, since the $20 million would only buy him some precious materials to remodel the island, nothing more or less. On the other hand, those rich whales were the ones who were going to shake everything up when they throw hundreds of millions at once to devour as much as possible of the flood of jewelry that was in the market. This would result in a herd of sheep following their steps and doing the same, just because the whales did so. But this wouldn't affect Felix much, because he made the first move, with every preparation possible to hasten the shipments process. By the time the sheep and hyenas who smelt profit late fled the market, they would only find crumbles left behind by the whales and his aunt, who was planning to invest at least $300 million on this gamble. As long as Felix kept his actions small and miscellaneous in the bigger picture, he would keep earning profits until the day everything goes haywire, and diverge from the known timeline. Satisfied with the smoothness of his operations, he raised a megaphone to his mouth and encouraged the hard-working handyman. After seeing that no one was paying attention to his encouragement, he stopped for a second and searched in Google for good motivational quotes and read them passionately. All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. The secret of getting ahead is getting started. Never limit yourself. Layla and the other supervisors were quite speechless at Felix's antics. But what else could they do? He was the boss. 8 hours later, the sun started to set west. That's enough for today, guys. You did well. Give yourself a round of applause, and come dine in the hotel and take rest. We have enough rooms to host everyone. The handymen started to clap with red hands over their efforts, and then headed towards the hotel. The lucky ones went on jeeps, while the majority had to walk, since there were not enough vehicles to carry everyone. Felix got a light headache after seeing this issue, as he knew that bringing cars and trucks as well as renting construction vehicles was going to be a pain in the ass, since he needed a huge load of them to start the construction of all the buildings at the same time to finish early. But when he asked his aunt about it, she replied that even though the renting prices have fallen to the limit, they still would need a huge amount of time to be sent here if they were going to keep acting discreetly. Fuck it. After the resources arrive and the manpower, we can drop the act and just go all out and use as many ships as possible to bring the vehicles. Felix decided to do so, since it won't matter much at that point. If anyone sees what they were doing, it would be too late to hinder them. He then called his aunt and informed her of the current plan. Auntie, for the shipments of vehicles, just go ahead and use everything you got to bring them here ASAP. But wait for the materials to arrive first. He quickly added after remembering an important detail. And send some architectural engineers here as well. I need them here for the designs. His aunt replied unhurriedly, as you wish, dear. You can expect the engineers to reach the island in 2 days. I will give you a call when they sail. Thank you, Auntie. I will leave you to it now. Goodbye. Bye, dear. Inside the hotel, people were everywhere, some entering their rooms to take a rest, while others were heading towards the ballroom where a party was being held there. Drinks, food, and music filled the atmosphere with energy for drunk adults to dance to. The only downside about the party was the lack of females, as only sweaty men kept dancing and shaking their bodies to the beat, with no women to grind to. The image left Felix horrified, as he swiftly escaped to his suite without bothering to bond together with them anymore. This can't go any further. I must create a brothel in the island here for them to let off their pent-up desires, or else during this 2 years period, every female on the island will get raped, and when they are done with them they will turn to each other. Fuck, I can't let this happen in my presence, or my honorable image in the family will go to drain. Without further ado, he called his aunt again, who was the only one he could trust and rely on, without breaking the rules of the test. He then explained to her that the ratio of men and females in the island was outbalanced by a huge margin, and if left this way, a disaster will strike sooner or later. It's better to nub the bud right now, and just build a brothel for them. It will keep them at ease and not have any wild thoughts, which would help them focus on their jobs honestly. His aunt giggled lightly and teased him. Dear Felix, you really have grown up to notice such a thing. I was planning to inform you about this issue later, since the handymen have just arrived and still tamed. But since you found out about it yourself, consider it done. I will send all types of girls for those men to enjoy, and some for your personal use as well. She added without feeling awkward at her proposition. Auntie, feel free to do so, but whether I use them or not, you will never know. All right. I'm hanging up now, tons of paperwork awaits me. Felix responded indifferently and hanged up quickly before she could reply back. Sigh, I have no problems letting off some steam, but in the eyes of my auntie, I'm still a 17-years-old virgin kid, so I have to properly act as one, at least for now. Currently in California, America, in a mansion near the beach, an elegant middle-aged lady that had a short curly dark hair, blizzard blue eyes, and wearing a red sleeping gown, was lying on a sofa with her arm supporting her head. That rascal is really quick to hang up on me like this. Huh, trying to hide your embarrassment behind that expressionless tone. She chuckled at his antics. I will never know if you use them or not. Lad, who are you trying to act manly for? Aren't you just a brat? But you are already 17 years old. You should start learning about this stuff, since your parents are gone. Let your auntie take care of this. She dialed a number on her phone, and after a few rings, the call went through. Without greetings, she laid out her orders unhurriedly. Sophia, go bring me 2 ladies, with the age of 17 to 19. They should be smart with high education, thoughtful, and most importantly beautiful. Tell them they are going to an island for an internship in an upcoming 6-star hotel. If they refused, leave them be. She paused for a bit, so Sophia can note down everything properly. After a few seconds, she carried on. And also hire escorts and send them to the island. The boys need them. And lastly, go find out where that stupid adrenaline junkie husband of mine current location. I just found out that he removed my GPS chip from his phone. She said the last part with an annoyed expression. That should be all for now. Make it happen fast. As you command, Madam Mary, Sophia answered dutifully. Chapter 20 The Gentleman Pact. 2 days later, Felix was showing his notebook, which was filled with details of the island, to the 5 architectural engineers that have just arrived. Look here, the foundations of the hotel, airport, seaport, and hospital are all in good condition. When my family decided to invest in this project, they used everything to make the foundation solid without future problems. This makes the remodeling much easier and cheaper. We just need to remodel the exterior and the interior, without worrying about the foundation of the building not handling the load, he said while pointing at the first page of the notebook. He then instructed them politely. There are 5 of you. Each one of you will handle the design of a building. The last one will create a design for residential apartments for the employees who will get hired after we finish the remodeling. Take note here. This is the outline of the entire island. The northern side is going to be for the resort hotel. The western side is for the airport. The eastern side is for the seaport. And the southern part will hold the warehouses. And finally, the middle of the island will be used as a residential area for the employees, and that's where the hospital shall be as well. He pointed at a small made map in his notebook. Feel free to read my notebook while I go search for some sketches I made, he said while heading towards his bedroom. An engineer was sitting on the left side of the couch, took the notebook, and read it carefully, trying to find any useful information. He pointed at one sentence and said to the others, "Look here." He noted that the roads between the resort hotel and the airport are not in a straight line, since there is a forest between them, which forces them to take a longer path near the hills using jeeps. This means we need to create a highway between the two, or probably even between all of them. But now it's better to focus on the airport highway, since the tourists will come from there. I suggest we call some of our subordinates to come here and handle those issues that may pop off like this, so we can focus on creating a design that will please young Master Felix. An old man with gray hair and a beard responded, I shall give them a call then. And one more thing. Dibs on the hotel. The other 4 instantly realized what this shameless bastard meant, and rashly called as well, dibs on airport. Dibs on the seaport. I will take the seaport. I will fight anyone who tries to rob it from me. A middle-aged man with a bald head threatened with a clutched fist. FCKU. I already called dibs on it. Respect the gentleman pact, or you are not a man. I heard jack shit. Stop spewing lies. The seaport is mine. I already have 10 seaports designs around the world under my belt. This project is perfect for my talents, the bald man retorted. A quiet middle-aged woman was sitting on a chair drinking tea said calmly, I will take what's left. You guys choose what you want, since no matter what you pick, my design shall be the best of them all. A sudden silence covered the living room, as the others focused their eyes on her, weirdly like they were looking at a strange creature. You are truly delusional if you believe so. My hotel design will be best. After all, the island's existence is to support it. Another one mocked her. What a joke. The hotel was picked. The airport was picked as well. And the seaport is being fought over. The only thing left is the residential area and the hospital near it. What can you design to make them better than ours? The seaport is not being fought over. It's already mine. The only thing left is those 2 projects. They can fight it over them as long as they stay away from my seaport. The bald man corrected him. You degenerate baldy. You own shit. I called dibs on it. Stop being a child. And respect the dibs agreement like a man. Just as the bald one was about to insult him back, they heard Felix's indifferent voice. What's all about this ruckus? I left you for 1 minute, and you guys are already at each other's throats. The moment they heard his voice, they instantly behaved properly. I wanted the seaport project since I have tremendous experience when creating their designs. I believe I will make one that will bring pride to the upcoming 6-star hotel. The bald man promised. The man who called dibs on the seaport did not leave it to rest and fought back. You donkey, I clearly called dibs on it. But you acted shamelessly and wanted to ignore the gentleman agreement. I can't let this blasphemous action bypass me. Felix did not want to listen to this farce anymore, so he ordered them indifferently. You have 3 seconds to decide who will receive the seaport project. Use rock, paper, scissors, I don't care. After 3 seconds, if you don't handle it, I will give the seaport to that elegant woman who is drinking tea. Now decide. Before 1 second passed, they both yelled out loud, rock, paper, scissors. The bald man used paper, while the dips man used rock. The result was clear. All right, you will get the seaport, and you will get the hospital or the residential area. Make haste and choose. Felix hurried him. I will go for the residential area then, he said in an upset tone. Good, now that everyone has a project, I expect you guys to not disappoint me and create solid designs for them. He then rolled down some large sketches of the building that he made and said, you can use those as inspiration for the creation process. I will leave them here with you. For today, go take a look around the area and choose a room where you will stay. There is still an open suite unused. Before anyone could even take a breath in, the old man with gray hair called out loud, dibs on the suite. The rest, who were slower, cried in despair as they thought, this bastard Dibs calling is a gift from birth. It got to be. Near the port, ships kept docking and get unloaded, then leave hastily for a refill. The handyman kept unloading those heavy boxes, which were sealed tight without a single opening. No one knew what's inside them. The only thing known to them was that those boxes were heavy as hell, like they were carrying rocks. Layla was updating Felix on the current situation while reading from a small notebook. Currently, over 500 large chests filled with precious materials and artifacts have been unloaded and secured in the warehouses. Madam Mary called me earlier and informed me that 500 more chests are arriving tomorrow, and those will be the last ones packed with precious materials. The next shipments are going to deliver the construction materials, and the period needed to receive all of them is estimated to be 10 days more or less. Good, keep up the hard work, and notify me if anything out of place happens. And I assume that Auntie informed you of the date the ladies are going to arrive, he asked. Layla replied with a blush, yes she did. It will be 7 days from now, and they will arrive together with the manpower needed to construct the buildings. She also told me she is preparing a surprise for you. She looked at him confused about what his aunt meant. Felix's palms sweated after he realized that his aunt truly went and sent him personal girls to enjoy. Yet, his face was as indifferent as ever. I see, don't worry about it. It's probably just some talents who were hard to be convinced, changed their minds, and decided to sail here. I see, I really hope so. We are getting slowly overwhelmed here. Jack is having some difficulties handling those men who went out of line without beating them too badly. All of those problems will be fixed when the manpower arrives. Just hold it tight for now, as 7 days later they will be here. He stood up and said lastly, all right, I have seen enough. I am heading back to take a rest. Stay in contact. He then departed swiftly, leaving her to continue her job. Chapter 21. The First Discoveries. Felix entered his suite and took a quick shower. After finishing, he ordered dinner from room service while changing his clothes. Asna, stop playing dead and tell me your opinion about the current situation. Since if this hotel turns successful, it might bring us a quite tangible authority within the World Council. Asna lay sideways on a couch made of mist while hugging a popcorn bucket, watching a movie from Felix's memories. Didn't I tell you to not bother me with your problems? I don't care how your hotel manages to perform. I am not your babysitter to watch over your actions and correct them. If you got a bloodline and wanted to awaken, notify me. Before then, let me watch my drama movies and series in peace. She replied lazily, uncaring about the fate of the hotel. Asking Asna was truly a lost cause, as she only cared about 2 things, freedom and enjoying her time. So he dropped the matter entirely and stopped bothering her. It's not he would actually use her opinion even if she decided to help. After all, how could someone who was sealed for 20 million years know anything about architecture and construction? Are you calling me lazy and stupid indirectly, you bastard? You have no idea the number of constructions and buildings I saw during my life. Just one of them can give you a heart attack. If you asked me again politely, I might have given you some inspiration for the design, but now get lost from my sight. Asna fumed as she threw the remote control at the TV, turning it into a cloud of mist. Felix realized that she was right, as even though she might have been sealed for a long time, he had no idea the amount of time she lived before being sealed. And so, he apologized with his thick skin like he never insulted her. Come on, my dear Asna. You know we are partners, and I will never insult you like this. So how about you forgive me, and share some of your memories of those constructions you mentioned. Asna humphed and created a second TV, while saying, now that you know my worth, you come back begging. Well, even if you begged, I can't show you, since if you want to see my memories, you need to first access your consciousness. Felix's expression that was fawning over Asna instantly turned disdainful. Then aren't you still useless? You can't do this and you can't do that. Everything that you said will help me cannot be used now. You are living in my consciousness, at least pay rent by sharing some of your memories. But no, you can't even do that. And you dare not think of yourself as unproductive. How is it my fault that you can't even get a bloodline to merge with? I already gave you the methods. It's not my problem you are too weak to use them. Now leave me alone, so I can finish this movie already. She yelled in irritation and disconnected the link between them to watch in peace. He shrugged his shoulders after realizing that he can't hear her thoughts anymore. Well, that was absolutely pointless. I won't call her again until the assessment day. Next morning in the cafeteria, the 5 engineers sat around Felix, each with their own breakfast. However, only Felix was eating as the rest were informing him of their first discoveries during yesterday's scouting. I did a quick survey around the hotel exterior and interior, and all I can say is that the hotel will need a lot of work just to repair the broken stuff inside it. Harold, the hotel engineer, pulled his own notebook and showed Felix the results of his survey. So I suggest replacing everything that needs maintenance with a luxurious version of it, such as the elevator must be fully replaced with a new one made of gold and ornamented with gems and an artistic design. Felix loved the idea and nodded his head in approval. He wanted the entire hotel to scream with lavishness that even the richest people on Earth would have their jaws dropped after seeing it, if not else. What's the point of wasting all that money on those materials? The dipsman, whose name was Gabriel, began talking about his own experience after Harold finished. A bodyguard called James guided me towards the middle of the island, where the area is supposed to be used for residential apartments. It turns out that it is the perfect land for the project. The only issue I have is the trees are too many in the area. They must be removed to give us a large open space to build the apartments. Consider it done. We are only waiting for the construction equipment to arrive, Felix replied. He then turned his head towards the elegant lady and asked, what you think of the island-only hospital, Madam Abigail? Abigail slowly cleaned her mouth with a handkerchief and answered, honestly, it is more like a small clinic than a hospital. Even though it was built large enough to be called a hospital, the interior of it is empty of nursing beds and doctors. She paused for a second and said seriously, plus the inside is quite stuffy. Like the air conditioner pipes, pathways are either not working properly or just installed wrongly. So the first step I am going to do is to fix it, since we are going to expect some patients when we start the construction process, and it's going to be a horrible thing putting them in that environment. Felix nodded and said, good thing you noticed it. I was too busy to fully investigate the hospital and just left it for later. He suddenly asked her after remembering Cled, tell me, will the patient who's getting treated inside get affected as well? No need to worry, young master. He is getting clear oxygen from a tube, and since he is in a coma, he does not feel the stuffy atmosphere. But other patients who will arrive later will notice it and start complaining. It's one thing to smell the nasty medicine in the hospital, and another thing to smell it and not be able to breathe properly. All right, I give you full authority to handle any problems that arise from the previous design and fix it as you see fit. Thank you, young master, for your trust. She bowed her head slightly. Now share your thoughts about what you discovered in the airport and seaport, he asked the bald man Barry and the airport engineer Eddie. The seaport is still in good shape. The machines are working properly and the port is not too shabby. The only thing I can do to improve it is to change its basic exterior to look more befitting of being part of this island. The airport condition is the same as the seaport. The interior foundation is solid, but its appearance is quite basic, and to remodel it, I would need a quite large amount of materials. I believe the budget is going to be only a little bit less than what the hotel remodeling needs. Eddie offered his own views on the airport condition. Understood. You can take 10% from the hotel budget and use it as you see fit, Felix promised. Harold almost slapped Eddie in the face when he heard his budget was to be given to him. So he just sat there fuming as he glared at Eddie, unbothered about his look. Eddie gave him the middle finger when he rubbed his ears with a smirk. He was not worried about getting caught by Felix, as they were sitting at the side of the table. Harold almost fainted from anger after being insulted like that without the ability to retaliate. You want war? Then war it is. I will make sure you receive the shittiest batches of resources. Let's see if you are going to give me the middle finger again. Eddie kept his smirk on his face as he mused. This moron has all his emotions written on his face. I don't doubt he will give me the worst batches of precious stones, since all of them will head first to the hotel for filtering. Then the leftover will be given to us. Too bad for you. I will plant my subordinates within the workers who manage the resources and switch the batches. Let's see your face when you use the worst materials to remodel the hotel. Abigail looked at the evil smirk of Eddie and the angry Harold and thought, if you don't take your job seriously and kept fooling around like this, don't blame me when I report it to young master later. Let's see at that point how are you going to ease his fury at both of you. Chapter 22 Grandfather Care. 7 days later, ships arrived in the port completely packed with men and women wearing vacation outfits. Craftsmen, construction workers, managers, electricians, plumbers, logistics managers, escorts, and many more different types of careers and jobs. All in ships coming to this unknown island in the middle of nowhere. They came searching for a place where they could do their crafts and jobs properly without being harmed from the chaos outside. They were promised free housing and food during the duration of the construction, as well as good pay. Not as good as they were being paid before, but at least they would get paid instead of hiding in their homes, doing nothing but eat, sleep, and shit like some poop generator. They accepted the invitation because they did not know what the future was holding for them. And the world leaders refusing to share intel made it even worse, as they thought there were only 2 reasons why. 1. The leaders did not dare to do so, since the information was too horrible for them, and if it gets leaked, the chaos might turn even uglier. 2. The news was too good, and the leaders made a pact to hold it as much as possible until they benefit from it, then release it to the public. Both of those reasons had no benefits for their future, so it's better to just take a step forward and brave the unknown than to hide like cowards. Felix watched the people he hired disembark one by one, holding their suitcases with them. All of those people either did not have families, or they did and just didn't care leaving them behind, since the first condition of coming here was to arrive alone, as there was not enough space to hold everyone, plus their family members. Slowly, the ship started to get empty. Everyone who disembarked stood in the dock, making 2 groups, one for men and one for women. Felix's eyes suddenly brightened a bit as he glimpsed at 2 beautiful ladies lining up last. And he really sent some talents here to even be able to hire those 2 beautiful escorts. The men would work harder to earn money just to get a night with them. What a good plan to force them to do their best. Soon everyone landed on the port and lined up neatly. Jack stood in front of the men, while Layla in front of the women. All right, I will call the jobs you were hired to do one by one. If you hear your job, come line behind me, understood? Jack instructed them sternly while holding a list under his armpit. Layla told the women to do the same. Then they began calling job after job, and people got behind them obediently, making different lines, each for a specific work. After they finished the list, those 2 women were the only ones left. Layla instructed, state your jobs and why you did not respond. One of the girls lowered her head and said shyly, we were hired to work as interns in the hotel. Madame Mary told us to follow young Master Felix to assist him in his work. Layla immediately froze, as she realized that Madame Mary sent those 2 for Felix to play with. Her expression soon morphed to jealousy, but she quickly hid it. Oh, is that so? You are still young and need training first, so you will follow me to learn the basics. After I see that you guys earn some experience, I will send you personally to young master to assist him. Am I clear? Both young ladies bowed their heads lightly. Yes, madam. Thank you for your care. Felix watched this situation unfolds with a relieved expression. He was glad that Layla intervened, as he really had no time to play around. This period was crucial for the hotel and his future. He needed to be at his best state, and those beautiful ladies would cause his teenage hormones to annoy him to death by their presence. Good, take your time training them. I don't want burdens. If you think that they are not ready, don't send them. He waved his hand and left Jack and Layla to handle those workers' rooms in the hotel. He was not worried about the lack of space, as the hotel had 400 rooms and 24 suites. Each room had 2 beds and a comfortable couch. That meant each room could hold 3 people, which was not bad, considering the total manpower that arrived was just 10-20. The hotel could handle their housing, but it would be the last one to be remodeled, since they couldn't start constructing the hotel while everyone was living in it. So it was much better to start with the other buildings. The moment they finish them, they could send those workers home. This will relieve some of the burdens on the housing, as well as their daily consumption. Next morning 9 a.m., Felix decided to eat breakfast this time in his room, since it got pretty wild inside the cafeteria, with all of those people flooding in to eat. He called Jack with his phone. I want you to round up all the craftsmen who deal with making chairs and tables and all the furniture that requires wood and ask them to come to my suite. I need to discuss their jobs with them. They will be in your suite in 30 minutes, young master. Good, stay in contact. He hanged up. 25 minutes later, Felix was sitting on a couch in the living room, while over 30 wood craftsmen gathered around him in a circle. Listen up. I have bought a huge quantity of all types of expensive wood, and I want you all to turn them into furniture that will make this hotel smells like wood. You hear me? But first you need to draw me a set of furniture that will be used in each room. Then draw me a set that will be on the suites. The ones that please me will be used as models for you all to work on. The creators of those two sets will live in a suite for the period of constructions. He tempted them with a smile. As you wish, young master. We will start working on our creations as soon as possible. Be at ease. One of the craftsmen bowed his head respectfully. Good, you have a month period to provide me with your final creations, and you are allowed to use precious materials in your design. Just don't overdo it. He clapped his hand twice and stood up. Now go ahead and start brainstorming. Afterward, the craftsmen left one by one, until the suite door got closed by James. Felix wore a practice outfit and headed towards the gym to lift some weights. It's been a long time since he did so. 2 hours later, Felix took a cold shower after returning from the gym. After a while, he finished and stepped outside of the bathroom. Immediately, he noticed his phone ringing. Ring, ring, ring? Who is calling me at this period? It's probably Aunt to ask about the 2 young ladies she sent. Yet he was completely wrong, as he saw the one who was calling him was surprisingly his grandfather. Hello, Grandpa. What's the occasion of your call? He chuckled as he accepted the call. Little bastard, I am glad you are still alive. Can't you call to check on me from time to time? Gramps, I don't have the time to accompany you. I am working my ass off to revive the hotel and win the approval of the board. Your grandson is doing his best here, Felix said with an annoyed tone. Haha, working hard. It's been over 8 years since I heard you say those 2 words seriously. And it was when I gave you the mission to pee on Benjamin's shoes, he chuckled. I still remember your cute solemn face, as you promised that you will do your best. Furious and embarrassed, Felix responded. Baldy, did you call me to humiliate me or what? If so, I will hang up now. Little Felix, just relax. I brought you some news that will give you a slight advantage over your cousins later. Robert's playful tone quickly changed to a soft whisper. I was sent as the family representative 2 days prior to attend a meeting made by all of the current business families around the globe, and I heard some shocking news there. It seems a president from a country has leaked all of the information that happened in the United Nations meeting to a business family he owned a favor to. He paused for a long while, until Felix thought that the connection had been cut off, but a couple of seconds later, he continued on at a faster pace. They were the Diago's family from South America, and they were the ones who sent invitations to all of us to attend the meeting, so they can sell that information. Felix felt his heart skip a beat as he realized his actions began to alter this timeline, because he had never heard of such thing happening before. Or, it did happen, but he had no one to relay the information to him, since his grandfather, the last person who backed him in the family, died during the chaos. But because he saved him, he managed to get it firsthand. I see. Are you even allowed to share this classified knowledge with me, Grandpa? Are you stupid? What can they do to me? I am only sharing it to my grandson. Nothing major. Robert scolded him. Now shut up and listen carefully. First of all, I heard that we humans can gain abilities using the bloodline of beasts, and the family is going to hold assessment 6 months from now to help you juniors use those powers efficiently. But the rank of the beasts which will be given is going to be decided by the amount of work you did to revive your project, he suggested sternly. So you should spend your entire budget on the hotel as fast as possible to show at least that you are taking the tradition seriously. This is my advice for you now. Use it, kid, as all your cousins have no idea about this knowledge. He soon stopped whispering and said in irritation, That's all I can share without being punished heavily for breaking the family rules. All right, Grandpa, even though I understood absolutely nothing for what you just said, I will follow your advice and spend all my budget on the hotel. That's a talent I was born with. Felix laughed out loud, trying to act dumb. You rascal. The only thing you do well is waste resources. But this time I allow it. Use everything to make the hotel shinier, to improve your chances of being favored a little bit by the board. I need to go, I am being called for a meeting. Bye, son. Without waiting for Felix to replay, Robert hanged up. He must be really rushed. Felix stared at the black screen of the phone and smiled happily. He did not care about the information shared, since he already knew about everything beforehand. He smiled because this showed how much his grandfather cared for him. As the family punishment waiting for his grandfather, for sharing such a classified secret, was the confiscation of all assets, as well as serve 6 months imprisoned in his home. A punishment inescapable for anyone, not even an elder. If he got caught though. Chapter 23. Everything is ready. 4 days later, the construction materials fully arrived yesterday. This meant that everything was on the island, except for the construction equipment as well as vehicles for transportation. However, this would not delay the construction any further, as Madame Mary was going to completely drop acting discreetly and use her logistics business company to its full potential and send everything as fast as possible. She already informed Felix that it would take nearly 7 days to finish shipping them. The only thing Felix was worried about was the family disqualifying him from the test after they find out that he used his mother's contacts to avoid paying the heavy prices of transportation. Even if they wanted to make an exception for him and accept Madame Mary's assistance, would his cousins allow it? Not in a lifetime. Felix already bullied them until he became their trauma, so how could they miss this opportunity to make it difficult for him? Without a doubt, they would complain to the family board that they were being biased to Felix, and keep whining that it was not fair. Felix could already imagine Kenny fake tears as he hugged the leg of an elder, making a scene to everyone. He stopped thinking for a second and spitted in disgust as his cousin Kenny's image resurfaced in his mind. Fuck, I should not have tainted my mind with his face. Now I can't remove his disgusting fake smile from my mind for the whole day. I should probably just fast today. Out of sight, out of mind. He sighed. He fiddled with his phone up the hill while eyeing the crowded hotel, resembling a hive of ants. I can safely assume that the construction and remodeling of the 4 projects will officially begin 15 to 20 days later. That wasn't too bad, as the chaos would still be running amok in the outside world, and when the workers see it, they would appreciate the opportunity of being away from it. But in the case of the construction delaying for over a month or more, it would create a huge problem since everyone would feel cheated when the information about the Supremacy Games Alliance gets released for the public. After they see that humans could get as powerful as the heroes they grew up watching, or the UVR that allows everyone to get what they desired with 100% simulation, they would honestly feel like they were imprisoned away from civilization. At that point, the entire plan would fall apart when over 1,000 people start protesting to send them back. If that happened, Felix could only give up on the public wishes, even though he had a solid contract, simply because he couldn't afford to contain their protest with his few bodyguards. But most importantly, he would rather terminate their contract than let them create an average hotel, due to lack of motivation. However, Felix still had to install those large screens that he bought to let them watch the games that were going to be streamed from the UVR all around the globe. This would at least quench some of their misery in those 2 years they were going to spend on the island. In the first place, the only reason those workers were here was to avoid chaos. But if they knew beforehand that it would end only in 2 months, they would have never bothered coming to this shithole, no matter what price Felix had offered. Days went by quickly as Layla and Jack took care of everything smoothly after the arrival of those talents who had experience in either logistics or security. Right now, they were more like supervisors, while their subordinates took care of the shipments, as well as human resources efficiently. Layla thought to herself as she watched the last boat unload the equipment. Finally, everything is here. Now we just need the engineer designs, and we can start the construction directly. She then took her phone and called her crush. Young master, everything is here. We are ready to begin. Good. Start with the residential area right now. I have just received the design. I have already approved of it and can be studied and applied now. Call me when it begins. I want to watch the process. He replied, as you wish, young master Felix. I was before she continued speaking. She only heard peep-peep sounds. Afterwards, she put her phone in her pocket and smacked the back neck of her subordinate, who was drinking his coffee peacefully, watching the boat sail away. What are you still doing here? The boat is already gone. It's not like your wife in it to watch it leave with that expression. Go to work right now. We got approval to start construction on the residential area," she yelled with a flushed face. The poor dude could only massage his red neck to ease the pain. He didn't dare to complain about the slap. "Yes, right now, Madam Layla, be at ease. Everyone is extremely motivated to start working. All right, scram now. Call me when you guys are about to begin. Young master, want to observe? I will do so, don't worry." He then escaped swiftly from Layla, who was clearly upset and just wanted to release her anger on somebody. Why doesn't he show me a little bit of care? Aren't I doing my best here assisting him without complainant? At least give me some credit, and not hang up on me like that. Her lips quivered as tears threatened to drop, yet she held it in and kicked every small rock in front of her while walking back towards the hotel. Vexed, Felix eyed the black screen of his phone to actually run out of juice in the middle of a conversation. He rubbed his eyebrows and entered his suite. He knew that he must explain to Layla what happened, so she won't misunderstand him. He didn't want her to think of him as a rude kid. After all, she was extremely vital to his island project. He planned to leave it in her hands after he gets summoned by the family to test his elements in the upcoming assessment. He only trusts her to perfectly keep everything in order in his absence. "I will give her a quick call later." He left his phone charging and went to the bedroom to change, while thinking of the consequences of showing off to the family and his cousins. His grandfather called yesterday and informed him that he went a little bit too far with his budget wasting, since even the elders noticed his huge activities over the past month. This meant they would probably send their inspection team to look around, or just call a servant to give the full details of the events that transpired. Since the servants belonged to the family, and not Felix, he believed they would do both. Firstly, scout what happened from a servant, and when they hear the shocking information, they would send an inspection team to clarify the details from him. This was exactly what Felix wanted, for the family to get astonished by his bold foresight when he took advantage of the chaos to reap some benefits, and used them properly for the hotel revival. After they see what he had done, his position in the family will recover from a thug to a seedling worth nurturing, to be sent to represent them. The only variable in this plan were his cousins. He could easily deal with Olivia, since she was a sweet flower who could be manipulated to his side. But for types like Noah and Kenny, it's going to be impossible, since one was like ice without emotions, who shows them only to his little sister. Meanwhile, Kenny could backstab one with sincere smile. Felix was disgusted before by this traitorous behavior of his. "I need to find some way to bribe them to not trouble me when the family sees I broke the rules." That was the only method Felix found that could stop them from making a fuss. Otherwise, if he let them act as they please, the Board of Elders would truly find it difficult to make an exception for him even if they wanted to, since the rules of the family cannot be broken in one way or another. Hell, even his grandfather, who brought the family to be classified as a business empire, could be punished. Don't even mention Felix. Chapter 24: The Sympathy Card. Felix walked around the living room with his chin resting under his hand. He kept thinking of ways to bribe his cousins successfully and have them join his side. The easiest way was to promise them some shares from the stocks that he would obtain from the family when the hotel gets revived successfully. However, this option was unacceptable to him. He didn't work his ass off to hand all the profits to them, not to mention they would make sure to write him off, even if he tried to do so. He sat down as he started to feel dizzy from walking around the couch. "Think, Felix, think. There must be some weakness I can take advantage of to pressure and blackmail them. I just need to dig deep within my fuzzy memories about this period, and I might find something useful." After a while, he suddenly fist bumped his palm and stood up with a joyful expression. "Found it, Kenny, you bastard. I should have known that your traitorous character did not act up only at that time, but way before." He grinned widely. With this I am confident I will turn you into my lapdog. But first I need to obtain solid evidence." Indeed, without having evidence, threatening Kenny would only get him to bow down and help him convince the other cousins to not give him a hard time, since he owns quite a few favors with them. As for Noah, that siscon, it was even easier to bribe him. Felix just needs to please his little sister with a gift and ask her to speak some good words about him. Noah never refused a request from his little sister. "All right, this is the plan, for now, to deal with my cousin's interference. However, I still need to deal with the inspection team that will arrive later." He must prepare a plausible reason for how he took advantage of the chaos. After all, his cousins were scared shitless to make a move. Meanwhile, he, the thug of the family who only knew how to waste money and laze around, had such foresight that allowed him to reap plenty of benefits during the chaos. Nonetheless, Felix was not worried about their interrogation at all. He already had the best shield for their accusations. 3 days later, Felix was standing in front of a tent, with 2 others behind him, a man and a woman. "You guys came just in time. My underling just informed me yesterday that they are going to start cleaning the area to make it fit for building an apartment complex." He smiled to the inspectors who arrived suddenly just 10 minutes ago and added, "It's for the employees who will get hired later, after the official opening of the Sky Pearl Island to the public." "I see, Mr. Felix, you really surprised us greatly when we heard the things you accomplished from the servants' mouths. You managed to pull off this huge remodeling under the eyes of the family. Although our understatement of your capabilities was the reason, it is still a good achievement." The dark-haired man complimented Felix with a smile. "True, I honestly don't know if he was acting like an unproductive thug in the family before, just so he can focus on the family tradition without being in the spotlight, thus managing to revive his business without the interference of his cousins, who will definitely harm his operations if they found out about it. But now it is quite too late, I assume." The inspector woman shared her own opinion on how Felix played everyone. "From what we heard from the servants, you already have everything prepared, and you just gave the green light to start the construction. Now they truly can't do anything to stop you." The inspector man supported her claim. "Seniors, you are truly giving me too much credit. There was no major plan as you mentioned, since I never acted like a thug before." Felix shook his head and said with slumped shoulders and a heartbroken tone, "That was just a kid in pain using his actions to express his hidden trauma. But sadly, everyone started to call me a rogue, thug, and unproductive lazy bum, just because I played some pranks on my cousins, and my grades in school fallen a little bit. The family is a really heartless place to be. That's why I decided to choose this island, which is in the middle of nowhere, just so I can be as far as possible from their despise and getting constantly looked down." The woman's expression softened a bit, as she realized that what she said was quite far-fetched. After all, who can spend years being looked down upon by everyone just for one moment of glory? Indeed, the family tradition was quite important for everyone's future, but to use your childhood for it, there was no kid on the planet who would be able to think so or do so. "Well, I quite believe you a little bit, but how can you explain being able to have such foresight and invest your entire budget on a gamble that may turn out right, or can just flat out ruin you in your future?" Even though her expression softened, that didn't mean she would stop doing her job. So she began her grilling to expose any underhanded methods Felix used to have such a great achievement. "Everyone knows that you missed all your classes in the family special school. You did not learn how to manage a business, economics, or how to invest properly. You learned nothing of such knowledge. But here you are on an island that was given a death sentence by everyone, trying to revive it using only a $30 million budget. So please explain yourself properly without lying. Otherwise, everything you did here will be investigated, so we can have a clear image of how you did it." The woman instructed Felix strictly to scare him into admitting if he played any tricks to cheat. Saddened, Felix lowered his head with watery eyes and said, "Even now, when I did my best to honor the family tradition and help them obtain an asset that can propel them even further than their rivals, I am still getting doubted over my capabilities." "You said how I did so. Well, it is simple. Would a prodigy need to learn common people's knowledge to perform better than them? No, a genius needs no such thing. He only needs some basic information, and can use it to make miracles. And this is what sets a genius apart from the common people." His slumped shoulders were no more, as he puffed out his chest and began listing all of his close family talents. "My grandfather was a business monster who dominated all of his rivals and made our family one of the top worldwide. My father brought the family a massive amount of wealth using his senses that only a few people in the entire world possess. His investments were all based on his senses, not his information or experience, and those senses never failed him before. My mother was one of the most charismatic women on the planet. Anyone in her presence would feel the urge to follow her leadership. She turned tens of five-stars hotels and restaurants into everyone's #1 pick." He stared at their stiff eyes and sighed dejectedly. "I have the blood and genes of all 3 of them, but I am still doubted because of my past actions that were only a cry for help, nothing more or less. None of you had the thought that maybe I inherited some of their talents and used them to revive this massive undertaking. You only judged me based on my childish actions, and figured that I played tricks to be able to do something which none of you can do. Well, guess what? I am a genius who inherited both my grandfather and parents' talents. He didn't avoid having eye contact with them, as he extended 3 fingers in their faces and began listing how he used those talents to remodel the island. My father's investment senses alerted me that there is a profit to make when I was watching the chaos on the TV. My grandfather's business talent allowed me to create a complete plan to revive this hotel and turn it into one of the best ones there is, using only a little information I searched from the internet and analyzing the extraterrestrial transmission. And finally, my mother talent helped me convince and charm the servants into taking my side and helping me finish this mission successfully, without reporting the events that transpired here to you guys. So my cousins won't hinder me. I used those talents properly and took advantage of the economical crash that happened during the chaos. While my cousins feared the future, I was thinking of the present and using it to my advantage. He clutched his hand into a fist and shrugged his shoulders. The only thing that you guys might find, if you search for any tricks I used, is my anti-assistance of transporting those resources here safely. Even though I didn't use my budget to do so, I told her to invest in the economical crash just like me, as payment. It depends if you thought of it as me cheating or me treading on gray line to help the family gain an asset that they can't refuse. Without waiting for them to digest his bullshit excuse, he entered the tent, leaving them standing outside with stunned expression. They truly didn't expect such a reason. Chapter 25: Rewards and Punishments. Felix sat down on a chair in the tent with a hidden smirk while eyeing the entrance. He was certain that he would pass the inspection safely after that flawless excuse he gave them. He might even gain some advantages when the family realizes that he was a business prodigy worth nurturing. But that meant jack shit to him, since he just wanted to show them that he was good enough to obtain a rare rank beast during the assessment. After that, he would give the family the hotel to manage, while having Layla and Jack as the ones supervising everything. Just like this, he would wash his hands from the island, while also earning billions of dollars each year. But what he truly wanted was obtaining a good relationship with the elites of the world. He then took his phone and started playing League of Legends Wild Rift with enjoyment. Outside of the tent, the inspectors were in a heated argument over Felix's explanation of truthfulness. I just can't believe what he said honestly. Just think about his actions when he was a kid. He constantly bullied his cousins who just wanted to learn in peace. Then when he got bored or beaten up, he fools outside with his retarded friends, who only know how to fuck around and bring mess for their families. The male inspector quickly added after seeing that she was about to interrupt him. Now you are telling me that this kid had magically found that he had all of his family members' talents, and then used them somehow to create a plan that made the impossible possible. I just can't believe it. Something is missing, I tell you. Something he is hiding from us. We just need to find out about it, and everything will be clear to us. He crossed his hands and stared at the entrance of the tent with clear distrust. The glasses lady stomped her leg and replied with a hint of sympathy for Felix. This is exactly what he said. No matter what he does now or in the future, everyone in the family will keep judging him due to his past. Who knows, maybe 1 year alone in an isolated island away from the toxicity of the family might have awakened his hidden talents, which were buried deep within, without anyone's intention to dig them out, since he was just a useless thug in the eyes of the family. But now that he self-awakened them and learned how to use them properly, so he can earn his honor and redeem his misconduct in his past, you still doubt him and not believe him. She poked his forehead while lecturing him on how their jobs are supposed to be. It is our job to inspect the juniors of the family in case they cheated or played tricks. But it is also our job to help them realize that cheating is not taking them anywhere. Furious, she increased her poking speed, until the man began to feel throbbing pain on his forehead. But here you are trying your best to bring that poor lad more problems and issues, even though he only wanted to fix his broken reputation. Instead of doing your job and give him some compliments over the great work he did, you are trying to look for an excuse to not face the reality that people truly change for the better, just because you are too lazy to change your revelation of his character from your mind to his current good character. She kept barraging him without stopping, forcing him to lower his head and not interrupt her rage. But I will not allow your crooked judgment to make more troubles for him anymore. He already suffered enough. We are returning to the family headquarter now. Report what he said, and they will decide if he is a good seedling or not. Now move. She kicked his ass with her heel to push him forward away from the tent. The poor inspector could only clutch his ass and walk ahead of her, not daring to disobey her. He never saw his partner rage at him like this, and truthfully he never wanted to see it again. Felix had no idea about their decision and didn't bother trying to figure it out. He was confident in his excuse. If they believed him, then it was all good, but if they didn't, it wouldn't matter much, since everything that he said was the closest thing to the truth. Because the real truth was that he returned from the future and had knowledge about everything. If he said that, they might beat him up and take him to the headquarter for interrogation. So he never bothered what their next action was, and just intentionally fed to his heart content in a league-ranked game, while reading the curses of his teammates with enjoyment. Evening 1730. In America, Boston, an enormous skyscraper was surrounded around with trees of other similar buildings, but not one of them could reach half the size of this establishment. At the peak story of it, a round table was in the middle of the floor, that allows more than 30 people to sit around it, was currently filled with only 4 elders, who were listening with a focus to the inspector's report over the situation in Sky Pearl Island. I see, it seems that Robert truly did not get scammed and received a prodigy child. But the miserable circumstances of his parents passing away and his grandfather's busy schedule forced that lad to take the wrong step in his path, thus making his talents buried, without us knowing about it. A white-haired man that had not a single wrinkle on his face sighed with sympathy over the fate of Felix. But now it is all good, as long as he managed to change his thuggish character. We will take care of everything for him. A business genius like him is truly too hard to find nowadays. A middle-aged woman with a ponytail and wearing thin glasses nodded her head. Indeed, he truly shocked us to death when we found out that he spent only $20 million to obtain more than 1,000 chests of precious materials, construction materials, equipment, and vehicles. He even alerted his Aunt Mary about his plan, thus allowing her to invest more than $400 million as far as I heard. She truly will make a killing when she sells everything slowly, after the leaders release the information we bought to the public. A bald old man said, with an envious tone. Baldy Albert, how dare you to envy others, when your net worth is close to $100 billion. Your cheapskate character always manages to surprise me. His greed for money truly knows no bound. Last time I found a business opportunity that will allow me to earn some easy millions, but it was a waste of time for me, so I decided to hand it to my subordinate to enjoy. However, this bastard heard about it from somewhere and used it to his own advantage without shame. Fuck, he would probably jump out of building for $1. Irritated, the white-haired elder rubbed his eyebrows after retelling such an unpleasant memory. What do you guys know? This is how rich people at the top keep their positions secure. Every dollar is important, no matter if it is just $1 bill or $1 billion. You will never understand where I am coming from, so just change the subject to young Felix. I want to hear your sentence if his use of merry transportation ships is allowed or not. Albert replied indifferently to his shaming. Well, in my opinion, he did nothing wrong or went out of line. We forbid juniors from the use of any free foreign assistance, whether giving money or just some knowledge. But Felix did not get his aunt help for free. He traded it with information that will allow his aunt to earn billions of dollars over the upcoming years. His information had exceeded whatever help he obtained from his aunt. The middle-aged woman reasoned calmly. She pushed her glasses upward and laid out her verdict. So my final judgment is that he did nothing wrong, but did something worth applauding for, because this is what we want from our future family leaders to be able to do. Agreed, he did well and we will reward him for it later. On the other hand, the other juniors were truly a disappointment. All of them were cowering in fear, and not seeing the big picture or having the balls to leave their nest and see what can they profit from the chaos. They failed as businessmen and should be punished during the assessment. Disappointed, Albert sighed over losing a huge amount of free money, simply because the other juniors were too fearful to make a move like Felix. Sigh, if it was not hectic for us during the chaos, from the death of an elder to appease all of the companies and hotels, we would have profited a bit as well. A middle-aged man with a long nose and bushy eyebrows smiled wryly. Indeed, fortunately, Felix helped us remodel a hotel that may turn into a 6-star resort hotel that will host only the elites of the world by using only $30 million, while the actual cost will reach $300 million or more if the prices were at market price. All the elders smiled with approval. Felix truly brought them a great win, which they desperately needed after the economical crash. After all, their businesses around the world were all affected negatively because of it. All right, I believe we have come to a decision over Felix's achievements. I will start by voting for him to be treated as a future business seedling, and if during the assessment he showed that he has a good affinity to an element, we will make him a representative seedling. The middle-aged woman raised one finger and added with a smile, plus reward him with an AP bracelet. He exceeded everyone's expectation, and he deserves 1 bracelet from the 100 we bought from the American government. This was how the Maxwell family operates. Rewards and punishments were proponents to one's achievements. Agreed. I vote the same. I agree as well. Now let's move on to the punishment for the other juniors. Albert's expression turned nasty instantly, as he couldn't wait to lay down punishments for those wastrels. I believe fear is the primary reason for their inactivity, so we need to curb that fear to not make them miss 1 in a billion opportunities like this. He smiled wickedly, so I suggest making them face their fears as punishment. If one fears snakes, lock him in a room with tamed snakes that have no teeth or poison. This will allow him to see that his fear of them can be overcome if he faced them without a retreat. To actually suggest such a messed up punishment, he was really butthurt over the missing free money. Even though it is heartless, it must be done, lest they shame us during the representative world battle. Our family cannot be disgraced. It is decided then. Felix will obtain AP bracelet as his reward, while the other juniors will be punished. Meeting adjourned. The white-haired elder tapped his knuckles on the table 2 times and stood up. The elders carried their belongings and left the floor, each heading in separate ways. The only ones who were left were the inspectors, who probably had a high rank within the family, to listen to the elders' board making decisions. Told you so, you stupid bastard. Someday your judgmental eyes will cause you trouble you won't escape from. The woman gave a smug smile as she pointed her finger at him. She then turned around and chased after the elders, leaving the inspector man standing in front of a glass window all alone. After a while, he sighed and left the floor as well. He already realized that she was right. People change whether we like it or not. But it depends on us if we changed our views about them or kept using their previous character as criteria for judgment. I guess my time to change has come as well. He chuckled over the irony of the situation as he entered the elevator. Chapter 26. The green light is on. Felix, who was taking a shower and humming a song joyfully, had no idea that his actions affected the timeline greatly once again. In his previous life, not a single junior in the family managed to take advantage of the chaos and earn profit from it. That's why the family did not bother meeting punishments, since all of them performed the same. But now with Felix meddling, everything had changed, because now there was a junior that did something great, something that any of the other juniors could have done. But they didn't, either because they were lacking, or something stopping them from performing the same. The elders thought it was fear that affected their mental strength, not allowing them to think properly like businessmen. So they had to be punished to curb their fear, so they wouldn't miss such an opportunity again. In the elders' minds, if Felix could do it, why couldn't they do it as well? When there was a comparison, everything changes. And due to this comparison, Felix unknowingly earned a free AP bracelet, and brought disaster upon his cousins at the same time. After Felix finished showering, he began studying the designs of other buildings, which were on the table. The residential area construction was on full swing. Now he just needs to pick the other buildings' designs from those prototypes they handed him, and gives his approval. This one is quite genetic for an airport. There is nothing unique it, just a good-looking airport. But what I want is for the tourists to feel regret leaving the airport. And this one does not deliver. He shook his head and carried on appraising the other designs. Shortly after, his eyes shone with delight after seeing a baggage carousel that was inside an artificial waterfall. The baggage enters through it from one side and leaves from the other side. He didn't know how they were going to achieve it without affecting the integrity of tourists' possessions. But that was for them to find out. As for him, he could only give them the green light. After studying the entire design, he was pleased by it greatly, so he decided that this one was going to be used for the airport remodel. He marked approved on design and moved to the seaport. He was quite excited to open it, as Barry bragged that he owns 10 seaports around the world under his belt. What the fuck is this? There is absolutely nothing new added or removed from the old design. The only difference is the paint color. The higher the expectations, the greater the disappointment. Felix immediately lost it, after seeing the only difference was a dye color from black and red to yellow and red. Did I hire that baldy to do me a dye job? Jack, order him to be here within 10 minutes. If not, he can pack up and scram. Furious, Felix instructed Jack, who was standing behind him. After all, he gave them more than 1 month to hand him the designs, as well as any materials they ask for. Yet the only different thing about this design was the paint job, something even a toddler could do. All right, young master, it shall be done, Jack replied while dialing in his phone. Felix spent those 10 minutes studying the other designs. 8 minutes later, young master, Did you call for me? Barry entered the suite casually, not knowing that he was in deep shit. Come here, Barry, and look at this design you gave me. If you were going to only change the color, you should have at least told me so I can assist you in picking a color more fit for the seaport. After all, it is an extremely difficult task, and I don't want you to suffer too much. Felix replied sarcastically while showing him the seaport design. Barry started to sweat after realizing that his design did not please Felix. He rubbed his sweaty palms together and explained, "Young master, it's not that I am lazy and don't want to remodel the seaport. It's just that there is actually no need to do so. The previous design was perfect without flaws. The only downside the port had was the rust on the equipment, as well as some that need either to be replaced or repaired." He rubbed his bald head embarrassed. "So I did not want to waste resources on remodeling something that was already good enough to be part of this island. It's purely a waste of resources that could be used on other buildings. So I did a paint job on it, without touching the core design. I have already scouted all the equipment that is faulty for replacement and put them in this notebook. Please take it, there is a quite few." He took a small notebook from his pocket and handed it to Felix. "All right. You do make a point. No need to waste resources on it then. Transfer the budget to the hotel or the airport. They need as much as possible." Felix's fury quickly decreased after understanding his reason. Then he opened the notebook and saw tens of equipment, which were written in red, and next to them was written "need replacement." What the fuck is this? Why do we have more than 20 equipment that needs replacement? Weren't they just fine a while ago, when we were using them to unload heavy containers? Young master, the machines were already faulty and needed desperate repair, but with continued use during last month, they finally gave in and broke totally. The repairman said they can't do much to them anymore, and you need new ones. He sighed helplessly. This is also why I didn't bother to make a new design, since it will be costly to just change the machines alone. Don't even mention remodeling it as well. Then don't bother giving the budget to others. I will use it to replace those machines. Leave it to me. Thank you, Barry, for the hard work. You can go now." Felix excused him politely and dialed his aunt's phone number. Ring, 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 cluck. "Hello, dear Felix. It's been such a long time since you called me. Probably since the moment you received those 2 flowers. I am sad you forgot me the moment you started playing with them." Aunt Mary answered teasingly. "Auntie, I am sorry, but I was really busy with the constructions. Problems kept arising each day. I need to supervise them. Just now I received news that more than 20 seaport machines had gone offline, and I don't have enough budget to buy them, so I can only call you to trade the seaport materials with machines." He sighed. "This is the only way I can do it without breaking the rules of the family tradition." "I see. Well, you don't have to worry about it. I will sell you brand new ones, using a premium discount of 80%. Since the chaos is still ongoing, and no one bothers to ask for transportation like before, I will send them in 3 days, and you can put the resources that you wish to trade in the ships." "Thank you, Auntie. This is perfect. My cousins won't be able to use this against me, since it is a mutual trade." "All right. I have a second call. It's probably Layla." "Bye, Auntie." Felix quickly hanged up the phone without waiting for her to ask about the fate of the 2 girls she sent. "Sorry, Auntie. I will make it up to you with a gift later." He then called Layla and gave her the green light to start whenever they felt they were ready. "It's finally time to begin the full makeover of the island." He chuckled. "The Sea Pearl Island is going to prove to the world that she deserves this beautiful name." Chapter 27. 5 months later. 5 months quickly passed by, as the world had changed completely during this period. It all started 2 months after the transmission, when the presidents and kings of each country came out of their shell and announced the boggling news about the creation of the World United Council. The Council's existence was the same as the previous United Nations, but with a few twists on it. The first rule the Council operates with was that every country had the right to vote, and only had 1 vote at the start, and to raise the number of votes higher. It depends on the number of representatives each country sends to fight in the upcoming planetary supremacy games. 1.5 years from now. This meant the more representatives a county had, the more her opinions during the council meeting would be seen with high regard. Since a country that had only 1 vote was merely a side character during the decision-making, while countries that would have 20 or more votes under their belts were going to be the true leaders of the world. The reason this voting system had been upgraded to be like this was simply because it wasn't fair for a country to send their juniors to represent them during the supremacy games. where they could die in their first game without being compensated properly. And extra vote for each representative was the compensation they agreed on that would fit as a reward for their efforts. This new voting system that relied on the number of representatives managed to offset frenzy within each country to start training camps, designed specifically to assist their juniors into awakening successfully and training them to use their powers efficiently, so they could be part of the winners during the World Representatives Battle. The first decision they made after announcing to the public the creation of the World Council was the release of all the information they obtained about the universe for them to see by using the AP bracelet streaming feature. They used it to stream all the knowledge throughout TV channels, the internet, videos, social media, and more. They wanted everyone to learn what the future of Earthlings looks like, and especially to make them accept the fact that a new era was upon them. The moment the news reached the public, it created a hysterical madness and excitement within each country. After all, who wouldn't be filled with fervor when he realizes that he can gain superpowers and control elements just like in a movie or a game? Who wouldn't feel the heat when he sees that he could enter a virtual reality that has 100% simulation, while seeing and meeting with different types of subhumans and other races they never knew they existed before? The internet went wild with people sharing clips and parts of videos that showed old games from the Supremacy games platform. Humans calling storms and raising tsunamis to attack each other in a brutal fashion. Hundreds of people dropped on an island where only one can survive, and more games with different types that please everyone's fantasies. Holy shit. This dude turned into a sub-dragon and started breathing fire from his mouth. So cool. I want to do so as well. Commented by I Have Dragondonger. I believe we can all do the same as them. My country president today made a speech saying that all of us have the potential to use the same strength as the other humans in our galaxy, and it all depends on the affinity of our elements. He also said that in 7 months they will open assessment centers for the public to scan their element affinity for a small fee. Replied SABER 6969. True, the president of our country said the same as well. Plus, if some of us had high affinity, we can get recruited by the government to join the games and bring glory to our planet. Man, I really want to obtain an AP bracelet. So many MMORPG games there with 100% realism. I wish I can join one and live there forever. Commented lowly is life. The comments on the internet were endless. Everyone was talking about what they want and how to obtain it. People analyzing the information in detail and giving those who were lazy to look through it important information they missed. Such as to awaken a bloodline, one must first undergo the most painful experience in the world. Pain that assaults every fiber in the human body. And the only way to pass through the pain was to awaken successfully. Otherwise, only death awaits them, or in the best case, emerges as a cripple. This news alone turned off the majority of the commoners' excitement. Now from their eager expression to awaken as fast as possible turned into wait-and-see attitude. Since not everyone could handle extreme pain. Hell, just one paper scratch in a finger or hitting the smallest toe into a table, and the majority fall into the ground wailing like their lives were over. Months slowly passed by, and the frenzy over the news cooled off just a bit. The citizens went back to their normal life. The chaos had ended after the big reveal, and those who sold off their assets cheaply to buy food and necessities had no tears left to cry when they realized they fucked themselves big time due to their paranoia. Now they could only sob in silence as they joined the rest in celebration over Earthlings entering a new era. An era where schools changed all the useless secondary languages to only have one, which was the common universal language that was used by everyone in the UVR, or just to speak to other subhumans in real life. This language became mandatory to learn and master, otherwise one wouldn't be able to converse properly within the UVR. An era where entertainment slowly decayed until it became non-existent. After all, who would bother to watch two normal individuals fighting each other with their hands and fists? While the Supremacy games show you real people beating the shit out of each other using abilities and techniques. Who would bother cheer for a football team or NBA team when you could cheer for your own planet fighting other planets for supremacy? This would slowly kill the entertainment sector until the day planet Earth officially starts its climbing journey towards the peak of Supremacy games. An era where casinos were completely uprooted by the gambling dens in the UVR, which were backed by the SGA and supervised by the Queen AI unbiased judgment. One could bet whatever he wanted and on whomever he wished for, and if he wins, his money transfers directly to his UVR bank account, with extreme security, as the only one who knew his bet details was the Queen. This platform, which was supported by the UVR, would slowly turn Earthlings into loyal supporters and fans, just like it did to everyone else. Its existence turned every spectator into an addict. This addiction was far worse than drugs because in the case of drugs, one knows he was being harmed and tries his best to become clean. But in the case of the Supremacy game, there was no such thing. He could spend hours and hours each day watching people fight, play, and kill each other in deadly games, then given rewards over and over again without feeling boredom. The platform did not spend 1 million years of its existence not improving or evolving itself to fit more for the commoner's needs and wishes. The Supremacy Games was a culture that couldn't be replaced anymore. Felix was currently in the gym, running on the treadmill with sweat all over his fine-tuned body, a huge contrast to how his body shape looked like before. He did not gain a lot of weight, but only tuned his muscles to be more refined and good-looking. After a while, he turned off the treadmill and went to take a shower. This was his last training on the island, as he would leave tomorrow to the family headquarter for the elemental assessment. The only thing he was worried about was the reason why the family didn't give him a call after the inspectors left to report to them his explanation. It was like they left him to continue his construction just like before. And the weirder part was that even though he showed his cards to his cousins, they didn't bother making a move or call to ask for bribes. Hell, he couldn't even use the blackmail materials he was preparing for Kenny when they tried to write him off. Everything went silent after the inspectors left. Felix still had no idea about what happened in the headquarters, as his grandfather, who provides information to him, went absent as well. Whatever tomorrow, I will find out about everything after I meet them, but for now I need to prepare my suitcase. I knew Felix was heading towards the assessment, a version that would give everyone the shock of their lives. Chapter 28. Arriving at the headquarter. The next day, 8 a.m., a jet that was sent by the family to pick up Felix was parked in the airport. Felix stood near it with Jack and Layla, who had tears on her eyes. Guys, I am heading back to the family for the assessment. I will leave everything here for you to manage. I don't know when I will return, but when I do, I will make sure to bring you gifts, Felix said with a gentle smile, as he looked at his subordinates who pleased him with their loyalty and work efficiency. Young master, you can leave the island to remodel in our hands. We won't disappoint you. The only thing you should focus on is how to perform the best of your abilities during the assessment. Jack thumped his chest with his fist and promised firmly. Young master, I wish to say something I always wanted but never had the courage. Layla wiped her tears and lifted her head. She then stared in his eyes with determination and said loudly, I like you, Felix. I always had a crush on you. I did my best to tempt and please you to show my interest, but to no avail. Is there something you don't like about me? I can change it, just tell me. Felix was surprised a bit but not shocked, since he always knew that she had feelings for him. He just didn't want to confront them. He believed in the notion that crushing on someone was a momentarily feeling that passes over a period of time. For some people, it might take just a couple weeks before they change their crush to another, but for some, it could last for years. He never expected Layla to be from the latter kind. Layla, there is nothing wrong with you. You are beautiful, smart, thoughtful, and tough when you need to be. You have the perfect package, so you should never change yourself either for me or for others. He hugged her gently, not caring about having his suit dirtied by her hot streaming tears, and continued to comfort her. The reason I did not accept your feelings, even though I knew them beforehand, is simply because I see you as my friend, a loyal subordinate, and most importantly a close person to me. And I really don't want you to waste your life chasing after me, or waiting for me. I can't be that heartless to my friends. He wiped her tears from her cheek with his fingers and said sincerely, so please Layla, do me a favor, and yourself as well, and give up on this crush. Find a good man who will be by your side supporting you always. You deserve it. After a while, he released her from his hug and smiled warmly. I am going now. Give me calls to update me on the island situation. All right. Yes, young master. I will make sure of it. Have a nice trip. Layla sniffed as she answered with her head bowed towards Felix. Her feelings might not have gone now, but they will slowly be erased by time, until only feelings of friendship remain. Good, take care guys. I will try to call as much as possible. Goodbye. Felix said his farewell and entered the jet. The steward closed the door after him and gave the pilot the signal to lift off. This was for the best for both parties. Felix was not open to the idea of getting into a relationship with anyone currently, because he understood one simple fact. His road ahead was tough already, and he didn't want to have another burden by his side to care of. He already had the greatest burden of them all, which was a Sna. So he only planned to fulfill his desires if needed with one-night stands, nothing more, nothing less. In the skyscraper of the Maxwell family 20th story, Felix was looking fearfully at all of his cousins who arrived earlier than him. Every one of them had a deadpan expression with a hint of despise, as they stared at Felix, who just exited from the elevator. This standoff carried on for 5 minutes already. Felix did not dare to breathe or move an inch as 40 or so of his cousins were currently giving him murderous gazes. It was clear that they wanted to pummel him to death. His earlier ideas of pranking them went up to smoke. The only thing he wanted to do now was to stay as far as possible from those rabid dogs who were about to pounce on him. Suddenly, the elevator behind Felix opened up. He turned his head slowly, worried that he will get sandwiched by his cousins. But after seeing who emerged from the door, he sighed in relief. "You rascal, you were hiding here while I was looking for you all around the building." Felix's grandfather immediately began scolding him. "Now come here and tell me with vivid details how you managed to revive the resort hotel, which no one dared to take as a revival project," he said with a hidden glint in his eyes. You dare hide such information from me, making me get blindsided by those fogies who started congratulating me the moment I returned to the headquarter. It was so fucking humiliating getting congratulated while having no idea what they were talking about. Let's see now how you deal with those angry mobs who were tortured to death because of you. Felix knew his grandfather fucked him up after seeing his cousin's expressions turn extra frosty when they heard him mention the hotel. He did not know why they were angry at him, but he guessed that they were punished by the family when he performed spectacularly during the chaos, while they were doing nothing. He just did not know what punishment turned them into this hateful form. Cough. Grandfather, you came just in time. Let's go. I will update you on the island remodel on our way. The moment Felix finished speaking, he turned around and dashed towards the stairs, not daring to use the elevator. He knew that by the time it opens up he would already be a bloody mess. Dumbfounded, his cousins and grandfather eyed him escape shamelessly, without any hint of remorse, leaving his grandfather behind. What a joke. His grandfather was the one who set this up to get his revenge. Felix might not know it, but he had a feeling that his grandfather had his hand on this. After all, he never called him before to inform him about his reward. Neither the angry mobs who were waiting desperately to beat him up. Bam! Suddenly they were awakened by the loud sound of Felix's suitcase dropping to the ground. Fuck, don't let him escape. If I don't beat him up to vent my pent-up emotions after being sealed with hundreds of cockroaches, I will never be the same again. A golden-haired beautiful young girl pointed her finger at the stairs. Same. I was sealed in a room filled with bees. The mere sound of them made me pee my pants multiple times in the presence of my parents. Such humiliation can only be erased by breaking some of his limbs. Honestly, I don't see what you guys are mad about. I had fear of snakes, but due to my punishment, I managed to overcome it, and even made a friend. Say, hi Charlie. A young man with spiky short dark hair said while having a white snake coiled around his arm, eyeing everyone coldly and making hissing sounds. The moment everyone heard him say this, they all roared. Shut the fuck up, Kenny. We all know your fear of snakes was a lie. The only reason no one bothered to punish you for it is because no one actually knows what you really fear. So fuck off to the corner and let us handle our business, or we will beat you up first. As a warm-up, a delicate beauty threatened Kenny viciously. God knows what she had gone through for her to be this thuggish. Kenny's gentle smile froze on his face after seeing their murderous gazes. He backed away while saying, "You guys, don't mind me. I was just speaking out of my ass. Go chase after Felix, he probably already escaped." Humph, that's better. Everyone split up and searched the entire headquarter. He won't leave the building. And even if he did, we won't allow him to re-enter without getting beaten up. Move out. The golden-haired girl waved her hand forward. Everyone chose a floor and went to search for him. Some took the elevator, and some took the stairs. What's important was that Felix was going to get pummeled today no matter what. Chapter 29, 1 verses 38. Felix escaped towards the roof of the building without dropping a sweat. It seemed that climbing the hotel stairs was quite handy. However, even though his stamina points get depleted slowly, he still wouldn't be able to survive running for 3 days straight, as the assessment was planned to be held 3 days later. The only ones who could get him out of this mess were the elders and seniors of the family. However, they wouldn't bother doing so. Hell, they might even be watching this scene unfolds with amusement. They would not interfere unless he was in danger of getting crippled or killed. Besides, so anything was allowed. This meant that the only option Felix had was to play hide and seek with them, so they could split their manpower to cover bigger areas. If they did so, He was confident in his combat prowess to beat at least 5 of them single-handedly. I still need to eat, shit, and sleep during those 3 days. His eyebrows frowned over this issue that made his survival even tougher. He understood that his cousins were not fools to not see this problem as well. This signified that they would leave some forces to defend those important checkpoints, especially the kitchens and cafeterias, as they didn't have enough to defend all the toilets in the building. I need an insider to report me about their positions. He thought about Olivia's deadpan expression as she looked at him before and shook his head. Forget it, no matter how sweet she is. At this moment she also wants to beat me up. I can't trust her with my position. So the only thing he could do was to head straight for the cafeteria, which was on the 40th floor, and steal some food to sustain him those 3 days before his cousins defend it. He started increasing his climbing speed, passing floor after floor, until he reached the 40th story. The moment he opened the door, he was ambushed from 3 sides with punches and legs. Felix calmly dodged the ones heading towards his head and balls, and left the others to strike him. He never let his guard down, as he always assumed that his cousins might use the elevators to reach those important checkpoints to block him from getting food. After defending their attacks successfully, he tried to break out from their encirclement by aiming at the female cousin who used her army boots to aim at his balls before. He put his arms in a guard position and dashed towards her. She tried to defend herself by kicking him again in his nether region. However, this time Felix was prepared. Adds by Pub Future. He sidestepped her attack easily. He then caught her extended leg and used his strength that took months to build to throw her at the other 2 cousins who were left behind him. Felix. She could only scream hatefully as she collided with the other 2. Arg. Painful groans escaped out of their lips, as one got smacked in the face, with her heavy army boots breaking his nose, while the other had his jewels shattered, as the female head went straight for them. Some may wonder if she had enmity with men's peaches. Stop whining already. You are disgracing your parents, who are probably watching. He walked slowly towards them and took their phones and said, I will give them back to you after this is over. Bye-bye. He then headed towards the cafeteria after making a peace sign at the security camera. On the top floor of the headquarter, tens of seniors and elders were watching big TV screens, showcasing their juniors searching all over the building, and Felix beating 3 juniors. Effortless. Haha, Abraham, your grandson is probably not going to have kids anymore with how he is wailing and screaming. What an embarrassment. Thank God he is not my grandson, or else I won't dare show my face to others. The baldy Albert laughed mockingly while pointing at the cousin, who was curled up like a snail with his hands on his nether region. Abraham, the white-haired elder on the board, did not dare to retort. Whatever he said would be nullified by his grandson loud wailing like a pig getting slaughtered. The only thing he did was lower his head in shame, while hearing the jeers and teases of those around him. I will fucking break his 2 other legs, as well as his father's 3rd leg, for giving me such a disgrace. We all know it is painful to have your balls smashed, but why the FCK are you crying and wailing as someone cut them off? If you can't even handle this kind of pain, you won't even awaken, you little dipshit, he thought to himself. On the other hand, little Felix is truly blooming right now. I really want to know what he experienced on the island to change him into this young, confident lad. To be able to defend 3 people ambushing him, and even counter-attacking successfully, his reflexes must have been honed greatly. Pleased, an elegant middle-aged woman nodded while staring at Felix, who was putting food in his backpack like a wild animal. Her eyelids twitched after switching her vision to her daughter, who was touching her face as she looked at a reflection on a small mirror. She was probably fearing her makeup getting ruined. How could the difference be this big? If she keeps acting like this, she won't survive the training camp we prepared for them. She smiled bitterly. Do you guys honestly think my little Felix will get beaten up by your wastrel children? Robert scoffed and carried on, not caring about the piercing eyes he was receiving. Well, think again. Felix spent 1.5 years in that island doing nothing but practicing the finest martial arts, all in preparation so he can defend himself from the bullying of your kids. You should feel ashamed of yourselves, letting them always gang up on him, and not fight him 1v1 like gentlemen. Even now he is still getting ganged up by 38 juniors, just so you can see if he truly deserves the AP bracelet. But now he will prove to you that he deserves it more than anyone. Robert twisted old facts without a change of expression, turning Felix into the victim, while the cousins who lived hell during their young age at his hands turned into the abusers. The parents of those juniors were having none of it. One of them said, "Old donkey, There is a limit to how much bullshit we can take from you. You said our children ganged up on him to bully him. But if he did not traumatize them in the first place by his vicious pranks, they wouldn't even touch him. Another parent intervened and added her own piece. What did you meant by telling us that we are holding a test to see if he deserves a bracelet? She sneered. If we did not agree, he would not have been about to touch one in his life. And since we agreed, there is no reason to test him. The only reason they are targeting him is because of their hate. What has that got to do with us? We were preparing to hold a 1v1 battles to see if they have a solid combat power or not. In the end, it turned into this fiesta we are watching now. So stop trying to make him a victim. You are not getting any more rewards for him, no matter what you say. Robert clicked his tongue and ignored them after his plan to help Felix earn some extra brownies failed. So he just cheered his grandson, who was beating two more juniors he found waiting for him in the bathroom. Beat them up. That's it. Felix, break their legs for this, daddy. The elders face-palmed as they eyed the legendary Robert Maxwell, cheering like a little girl for his grandson to beat their children in order to vent his irritation. 2 days later, Felix was in the headquarter kitchen wearing a pajama and making his breakfast while humming a song comfortably. During those 2 days that passed, he managed to beat up more than 36 juniors of the family senseless, leaving the others scared to approach him anymore. The elders just watched stiffly the last two cousins, who they were putting their hopes on to salvage this situation, hiding in the toilet from Felix. At this point, they just wanted this hell to end, and for the elders to fast forward the assessment. They had enough of this constant pressure that Felix could find them and beat them as well. They had no more thoughts of having revenge, they just wanted to live peacefully. The family upper echelon finally had enough of this embarrassment and decided to stop this fiesta. They had been insulted enough by Robert and Albert, who made a terrifying combination. Just yesterday, an elder vomited blood from anger as he was scorned by them, when his grandson cried for his mom as he was escaping from Felix. Those two rogues left no one safe. Everyone fell to their brutal insults without a way to retort, since their children truly performed disgracefully when compared to Felix. Comparison was truly a BTCH. Enough. We had seen enough to make a judgment. Felix is top-tier seedling who will be heavily invested in if he had a good affinity to the elements, while others will get punished due to this trashy performance. To actually lose 1 versus 38, I can already hear the world laughing at our family if we sent them like this to represent us. Abraham sighed in disappointment and ordered the servant next to him, make the announcement. Tell them to group on the 35th floor. That's where we will assess their element affinity. I hope it won't be as bad as their combat experience. FCK. We really taught them combat in their younger age for nothing. Such a waste of time and effort. He cursed under his breath. Chapter 30, The Elemental Assessment. Everyone is required to be at 35th floor in 15 minutes. Anyone who is late can forget about being assessed. A loud announcement kept repeating in each floor for the juniors, who were currently either nursing their injuries, hiding in the toilet, or passed out on the ground. The moment the announcement finished reporting, they all rushed towards the 35th floor. Those who were passed out got lifted by others on their back to deliver them. They might be competitive with each other, but they were still a family. Meanwhile, Felix heard the announcement while he was eating his breakfast and scrolling his social media. I see they decided to fast forward it by a day. Well, I am not complaining. I played enough with those brats. It's time to get serious. 14 minutes later, Felix arrived on the 35th floor still wearing his pajama. He surveilled the floor with piercing eyes, and every time it landed on a junior, they avoid it like a plague by lowering their heads in shame. The elders shook their heads slightly at this sight and ignored it. All right, since everyone is here, we will first start by giving your rewards and punishments. Before we begin assessing your affinity, Abraham said sternly. First off, the punishment. Every junior who participated during Felix hunt and failed miserably will be punished by having 1 month increase during our next training camp. Every junior lowered their heads even further in shame after being humiliated like this in front of their parents. The only ones who acted the same were Kenny and Noah, as they didn't participate in the hunt. As for the reward, only Felix obtained 1. He then dropped a bombshell on every junior, especially Felix, who froze instantly after hearing his reward. He will be rewarded with the famous AP bracelet. He rightfully earned it after he bought all the materials necessary to turn a dead island into a platform that will host only the elites of the world. using only the $30 million budget we gave him. Please give him a round of applause over this magnificent achievement. He began applauding first with admiration, and soon everyone followed. The seniors and elders were truly clapping sincerely, while the juniors clapped half-heartedly. It seems like I exceed the requirement to obtain rare ranked beast. Felix could only smile wryly and accept their applause. After a while, it gradually stopped. Ads by PubFuture. Felix Maxwell, grandson of Roberts Maxwell, come receive your reward. Abraham took a small black box from a servant next to him and opened it slowly, revealing a milky white bracelet that kept reflecting the sunlight that was coming from the window. Felix's eyes immediately brightened up as he saw the device that would allow him to make use of his previous life memories efficiently. He moved forward with quick steps until he reached in front of the elder. He bowed his head respectfully due to family courtesies and grabbed the small black box. He then took out the bracelet and wore it around his wrist under the envious eyes of his family members, ranging from seniors to juniors. Not everyone was allowed to get a bracelet, even though the family had hundreds of them. The only way to obtain one was by making a noteworthy contribution to the family. Only the elders had one, simply because their position was in itself a show of contribution towards the whole family. Just like Felix's grandfather, who single-handedly expanded the family to a business empire. Such merit could never be judged by rewards. All right. The punishments and rewards had been given. It is time to assess your elemental affinity. Elder Abraham didn't waste time and ordered them sternly. Make 4 lines, each having 10 of you quickly. After a while, everyone got in their position. 4 elders stood in front of each line and activated their scanning feature in their bracelet and instructed, "Come one by one slowly." The first juniors on the line moved forward and put their hands on the scanning blue light that was emitting from the bracelet. The Queen AI informed them monotonously about the results of her scan. Race: human. Gender: male. Element affinity: wind. Affinity rating: 9%. Race: human. Gender: male. Element affinity: wood. Affinity rating: 25%. Race: human. Gender: female. Element affinity: shadow. Affinity rating: 39%. Race: human. Gender: male. Element affinity: space. Affinity rating: 78%. The moment the last scanning result was heard, everyone froze with shock, then to disbelief, until finally pity. The male junior who saw his elemental affinity did not yell with joy, claiming he was 1 in 1,000 years prodigy. No, the only thing he did was stand there dumbfounded with hot tears gushing from his eyes over the cruel reality that his life as a representative seedling was over before it began. Felix shook his head piteously at this sight. Sigh, fate is truly vicious. To give him such high affinity rating over a rare great element that has all the beasts that use it either extinct or hiding in the cracks of space. Anyone who had a rare great element in the human race wasn't getting treated like a genius, but useless trash, since the entire bloodline integration system was depending on beasts. In other words, if there was not a beast alive that uses your element, it meant the same as not having an element in the first place. That's why rare elements such as death, life, destruction, creation, and more of such types were treated with negativity by every human. This was not a fantasy novel where the rarer the element one had, the more favored he would be. It's the exact opposite. As the more common his element, the better it was for him, due to having a wide range of beasts and paths to choose from. What's truly important was the rank of a beast, as the higher it is, the stronger and more unique the abilities one would be able to unlock. Soon after, the parents of the poor lad took him away. Continue the assessment, keep moving forward. One by one, juniors were scanned. Different elements were appearing here and there, but the majority of their affinity rating was still below 50%. No one had managed to pass that threshold yet. Shortly after, Noah and Kenny and Olivia turn had arrived. Race: human. Gender: male. Element affinity: darkness, lighting. Affinity rating: 51%. 7%, respectively. Race: human. Gender: female. Element affinity: plant. Affinity rating: 65%. Race: human. Gender: male. Element affinity: ice. Affinity rating: 70%. The moment those elements as well as their good rating appeared, the elders celebrated, their hands raised in the air. They almost lost hope after seeing only below average ratings continuously. Good, good. Finally, some good seedlings worth having. Elder Abraham laughed joyfully. His happiness was understandable, as those 3 had surpassed the average affinity threshold, especially Noah with his whopping 70%. High affinity was what truly decides whether one had a bright future or not. Still the same as before. Nothing to be surprised about, I guess. Felix lifted his head and saw that he was next in line. So he moved forward and put his hand in the light without the elder telling him to do so. Queen faithfully announced his scan results. Race, human, gender, male, element affinity, poison, illusion, affinity rating, 59%. 12%, respectively. The elders, who were still celebrating the birth of 3 potential representatives, celebrated even louder after seeing that their top-tier seedling had such high rating for an uncommon element. As for the rare element of illusion, it was totally ignored. Haha, this is truly a blissful day. To actually have 4 gifted juniors out of 40 is really worth celebrating for. True, our family is really performing better than other families. Just yesterday, I found out that the Volian family in Alabama State only had 1 junior with good affinity. For us to have 4, we are truly in luck. The middle-aged lady from the elders board added, Charlotte, you are still behaving like your younger self, spying and seeking information without anyone asking you to do so. Abraham teased her. What do you know? If don't obtain intel on our future rivals who will contest with us over the slots of the national team, who will? You. Cough. Never mind what I said. Now the elemental assessment has finished. You can go back to your rooms. We will call you tomorrow at the same time to give you a beast bloodline that fits your elemental affinity to awaken with. Good night. Abraham excused them with a wave of hand after finishing the assessment. Good night, elders and seniors. All juniors bowed their heads slightly and went to their rooms. Tonight I will enter the UVR. It's been really such a long time since I visited, Felix thought eagerly while heading towards his room. Chapter 31, Entering the UVR. Felix headed towards his room while ignoring the fearful and envy looks of his cousins. He took the first elevator all by himself, while the other 2 elevators were used by the rest. He clicked at the 20th floor button and stood silently. 30 seconds later the elevator stopped and Felix stepped outside, heading towards his room that was at the end of the floor. He opened it using his key card and entered, slamming the door shut behind him. Finally, my plans will truly begin. Getting an AP bracelet this early is heaven sent. I don't need to use the family bloodline beast anymore or even rely on their resources. I can obtain everything I need from the UVR. Elated, he looked at the bracelet in his wrist and went to take a quick shower. He started to smell as didn't take one for over 2 days now. 10 minutes later. Let's begin. Felix lifted his wrist that has the bracelet on and put it in front of his eyes and called under his breath, Queen AA. Suddenly his eyes closed shut and lay on the bed unmoving. 10 seconds later, a voice was heard in his head. Welcome, Sir Felix, to the UVR. Your AP bracelet has been successfully bounded with your consciousness. From now on, only you can use the features of your device. Do you mind me explaining them in detail? No need. I want you to teleport me to Alexander's capital city. Felix replied with familiarity. This will cost you 1,000 Supremacy coins in normal conditions, but since this is your first time, it is free. The next time you will have to pay the ticket price. Queen AI responded. Noted, teleport me now. You will be sent to the Alexander capital city Androxa in 3 seconds. Have a nice journey. 3 seconds later, Felix started to disintegrate. His body slowly turned into light particles until nothing was left of him. Deafening silence engulfed the white room after his departure. In a humongous city that spans into infinity, borders so far between each other, they can't be seen using normal human eyes. In the center of this city, a building bigger than any other famous structures on planet Earth was standing proudly with its unique spherical design. At the peak of the building, a large signboard was planted arrogantly above all that said SGA Teleportation Company. At the bottom floor of this company, multiple circles were continuously flashing as new people emerged from them and left hurriedly in a rush. Felix's body started to reconstruct inside the white circle. 1 second later, his body became complete again. Ads by Pub Future. The moment the process was over, Felix opened his eyes and hurriedly exited the white circle. After doing so, he sighed in relief. Not this time, you capitalist bastards. You cheated me out of my money in my previous life, since I had no idea how the teleportation works. But not this time. This daddy got scammed multiple times in the UVR. But now with my memories, no one will bully my naivety again. He smirked as he left the entrance of the company. Fuck, I was slow by 1 second and got 200 South Carolina deducted from my credit account, said a blue-skinned human while crying in agony. Brother, that's nothing. I heard from my cousin that he saw a kid staying in the teleportation circle for over 30 seconds. staring at it in awe. The poor kid ended up having 6,000 South Carolina debt. A human with a long alligator-scaled tail replied with sympathy. The others, who were listening to their conversion, sighed in pity over the fate of those newcomers, who get cheated of their money due to lack of information. The teleportation company took advantage of this and made a rule that each second a person stayed in the teleportation device will have 200 South Carolina deducted, since people get teleported each second constantly, and when a person stands in the circle for an extended duration, they start blocking the path of those teleporting after them, thus stopping the company from making a profit. This was the official reason and excuse the company used. However, everyone knows that their reason was complete bullshit. After all, they are in a goddamn virtual reality. People can literally teleport in every empty spot there is. Hell, people can even teleport from the toilet chair circle. But would the SGA allow that? Absolutely not. Why would they waste an opportunity to make free money from the commoners without breaking a sweat or effort? They just drew a couple of circles in the ground and named them teleportation devices, and anyone who wants to use them must pay for a ticket to go to his destination. The further the destination, the more outrageous the ticket price is. This is one of the main factors why, even though the UVR was created as an open space for everyone to travel freely unhindered, turned into a universe with different territories. And to go where you want to, you must pay for it. This devious plan that turned something free into gold mine was introduced by the human race the moment they joined the SGA, thus earning them a good spot within the alliance. Felix was currently wandering around the city without destination, observing the different types of humans that keep passing by him. Some had different color skin such as green, purple, and even pink, while some had extra body parts, ranging from having an extra eye in the middle of their forehead to having 6 arms. Those mutations are either byproducts during the process of awakening or replacement, or they appeared during birth due to having a low percentage of origin realm ancestor bloodline. But still, the majority of people had no mutation like Felix. This condition meant only 2 things. Either they are commoners who did not awaken or bloodliners who had no mutation during the process of either awakening or replacement. After traveling around the city for 1 hour, Felix finally settled his nostalgia, as he did not visit this city for a long time. Alright, time to start implementing the plan. He changed directions and trod forward with familiarity. First, he needed to head towards the bank to obtain his rightful starting pack loan, then use it to bet on the games that he still remembers from his previous life. They were not that many, as he doesn't remember much from this period, since he did not get an AP bracelet this early. He used to watch old games that were being streamed freely on TV and the internet like a peasant at this period. 15 minutes later, he reached another towering building that was half the size of the SGA teleportation company. But the difference between them was that this structure was shaped like a cube and shone with silver light. In the middle of the building, a signboard that said SGA Bank was hanged on it, shimmering with silver light as well. Felix queued like everyone else in front of the entrance and waited patiently for his turn. 30 minutes later, he entered the building and went straight towards the receptionist. "Good afternoon. I want to open a bank account, as well as receive my rightful first-time loan," he said politely. A beautiful lady that had 2 small cute horns on the sides of her forehead replied with a smile. "Good afternoon, sir. Can you provide me with your UVR ID? I need your private information to fill your bank account details." With pleasure, Felix extended his wrist and put it on a small scanner that was at his right side. A few moments later, "All right, I got what I need. Please head towards the 2nd floor to obtain your bank account details, as well as your loan. Have a nice day." The receptionist sent him off with a polite smile. Felix thanked her and headed towards the elevator. The moment he reached it, he noticed that there was a line for it as well, so he changed his direction and went for the stairs. After a while, he stepped inside the 2nd floor and went to obtain his loan. Sadly, he had to wait for his turn again, as there was a queue for it as well. His forehead veins started to pop out from anger, but he held it in and lined up without raising a fart. Fucking capitalists. He could only curse in his mind, not daring to insult out loud the most authoritative bank in the UVR. However, his rage was quite understandable, as there were more than 60 floors in this building. Yet they force all the people who want to open a bank account for free to use only the 2nd and 3rd floor, leaving the other floors for those who want to speed up the process using coins. They really use every method to earn profit just like in real life. Nothing changed much even if this is the UVR. Money always does the talking. Chapter 32 The Bloodline Market. Felix queued obediently just like the others. No matter how angry he was about their management, he still needs to play their game if he wants to obtain the loan. 20 minutes later, his turn had arrived. This time he did not greet anyone, and just straightaway put his wrist in the scanning device. The employee was pleased about this as well, as he preferred customers like those who do not waste his time with meaningless questions and conversations. I see that you applied for your first loan. He read the scan details in his screen and continued. Based on the SGA rules, every member of a newly joined planet can apply for a 100.000 South Carolina loan, with 3% interest increase monthly. He informed, the next loans will need an explanation and the purpose of use. As for the interest, it will be 6% monthly. Is everything understood, Mr. Felix? Yes. Good. 100.000 South Carolina has been added to your bank account. You can use it to buy anything within the UVR. I wish you have a nice day. Next in line, please. The employee excused him. Felix nodded his head and left the floor. After a while, he exited the bank and called for a hover cab using his bracelet, heading to the gambling den to place his bet. 10 minutes later, he was sitting on a couch, drinking coffee while watching tens of holograms, each displaying live a different game from a different rank and tier. The game I remember still has not started. I guess it will be on tomorrow Saturday since it is a battle royal type. He figured so, as those games extremely popular within the spectators, due to their brutal and simple condition to win them. One only needs to emerge as the last survivor within hundreds or thousands of players to clutch the championship. As for others, only death awaits them. Such a brutal game mode is what delights the commoners' boring lives. Well, no biggie. I will place my bet on the winner now, and come watch tomorrow. He tapped on his bracelet, and a large hologram appeared in front of him that no one else can see. He entered the Gambling Den official website and clicked on the games happening tomorrow. Immediately, he was transferred to another tab that had a long list of games. Queen, please find me a 500-player battle royal from this list. Without wasting any effort, the Queen quickly highlighted 3 games based on his requirement. He pressed on the one at the bottom, and details of the game displayed in another side hologram. Game format, free for all. Game name, 500, Battle Royal. Ads by Pub Future. Players number, 500. Integration allowed. From Origin Purity to Peak Stage 2 of Replacement. Ranks allowed. Silver and Gold. Player list. Please click on it for extended details. He clicked on it and typed Solid Wall in the search bar. He had no plans to waste time scrolling 500 names for him. Immediately after doing so, Solid Wall profile was displayed in front of him, with a large button underneath it that said bet on this player. Without further ado, he placed all of his coins on him, emerging victorious. His winning chances were 1 in 10, which were not bad, considering there were participants who had 1 in 30 winning chances. After Felix finished placing his bet, he went forward and put his wrist in the scanning device. Your bet has been successfully placed. No one knows the details of your bet, except the Queen AI. Good luck, sir, said a middle-aged man who was behind the counter. Felix thanked him politely and left the gambling den, planning to head towards the Bloodline market to browse the shop. 15 minutes later, Felix paid the cab fees and walked inside a bustling market, which was filled with noises of sellers using their loudest voices to advertise their Bloodline products, and buyers haggling down the outrageous prices. As he stepped in, he heard a familiar voice he could never forget. Gather around me, everyone, for I about to show you the greatest deal of your life. A fat man with a belly bear called loudly while holding a small cage in one hand that housed a red sparrow, exposing 2 long fangs from its beak. Meanwhile, on the other hand, holding a glass bottle filled with blood. After seeing that he gathered a good amount of people, he began his presentation. This is an epic rank tier 1 bloodline beast, the fanged sparrow. He lifted the cage high above and continued passionately. It is currently on the verge of extinction, as there are only 100 of its species in the universe. He put the cage down and showed the bottle of blood. I was lucky enough to obtain its bloodline from a beast hunter who needed coins urgently. He paused to catch his breath, and carried on. I am willing to sell it for only 500,000 South Carolina, a cheap price for such endangered species. Don't you think? He asked them confidently, showing not a hint of deceptiveness. Too bad, his confidence was shattered instantly after being exposed publicly. Who are you trying to scam, you moron? Isn't that just an uncommon rank red sparrow that had a small mutation from eating something he shouldn't? An old man who had his own stall nearby pointed his finger at the fat seller and carried on exposing his furiously. His price does not even reach 200 South Carolina, yet turned it into $500,000, and you dare call it cheap? Have some limit and shame. When you try to scam idiots, you are ruining the business for all of us. The shoppers' eyes instantly turned frigid as they eyed the fat sellers and began throwing rocks and empty bottles at him, forcing him to close his prematurely. If abilities were allowed to be used within public places, the fat seller would have already been torn to pieces. No need to bother yourselves with that human scum. Come to my shop and see what you like. The old man did not waste this opportunity and quickly began promoting his bottles after stealing the crowd. My bloodlines are all legit. He lifted one bottle from the many ones in his stall and said confidently, "This epic rank tier 2, the Cobalt Nightmare Bison. You can search for it right now online and find all about its information, element, abilities, and market price." He smiled genuinely. "I am only selling it for 4 million South Carolina." After seeing them recoil after hearing his price, he offered them a 5% discount on the house, claiming that it was an apology for almost getting scammed next to him. "Please don't lose your trust in us bloodline dealers. That's all this poor old man asks for." He sighed dejectedly over the miserable fate of the bloodline industry. "If only other dealers were as honest and trustworthy as you, we wouldn't need to have our guard up every time we enter this market, which is filled with 90% scammers," a kind-looking woman said disappointingly. "Indeed, and he is right, guys. I have just searched for the information about the Nightmare Bison, and everything checks out right." A young junior showed a hologram to everyone, displaying every public information about the bloodline. He added strangely, "But the real actual price of this beast is a whopping 6 million South Carolina, while this kind man only sells it for 4 million. Indeed, it was quite suspicious that someone wanted to sell an epic rank tier 2 beast while lowering its price by 35%. Not to mention the extra 5% the shop owner offered. The old man lifted his head and stared at the beautiful blue sky in the UVR, and said softly with tears streaming down his cheeks, "If my poor daughter was not raped and beaten to almost a half-dead state by a vicious young master from a clan, I would not have sold this treasure with such large discount." He covered his face with his hands and sobbed miserably. "I desperately need coins as fast as possible to treat her injuries." The crowd around him expression softened a bit after seeing such an old man weeping silently. "Old man, I will support your cause and buy this bloodline from your hands. I hope your daughter gets well." The kind woman made her move and offered to buy the bloodline. However, she was quickly stopped by another buyer. "Hold on now, miss. Let this gentleman helps a brother in need. I despise those despicable young masters who lay their hands on other people's daughters. And to show support, I will increase the price to 4.5 million. I bid 5 million for it. I want to gift it to my grandson who is about to enter the first stage of replacement. I hope no one fights it out with me." A red-haired elder threatened them jokingly with his can. Too bad a handsome young lad didn't care about his request, as he politely raised the price. 6 million here. I need it for myself. This bloodline is perfect for my first replacement." The seller immediately intervened after the price reached 6 million, the same price as in the market. "My dear costumes, I can't allow you to keep biting like this for it. I will sell it to this young lad, and when my daughter gets well, I will order more and sell them with a 20% discount to you. Come give me your contact number," he offered apologetically. The bidders glanced at each other and shrugged their shoulders. "No issue. I was merely trying to extend a hand. Me as well. Even though I needed it, I can tell my grandson to wait for no problem." The seller bowed and thanked them continuously for their understanding. He then approached the handsome young man and gave him the bottle. The young man took hold of it and smiled in satisfaction over this transition. "Please give me your bank account details so I can wire you the coins," he requested. The old man lightly touched his bracelet with the young man, sending him his bank serial code. "Here it is." Just as the young junior was about to hit accept, a loud voice interrupted him. "Wait, hold it right there. Don't sell it, uncle." Felix entered the fray with a different face and a hidden glint in his eyes. Chapter 33, Joining the Scam. Felix managed to stop the young lad from transferring the coins at the last second. He then rushed tearfully towards the dumbfounded seller, who had no idea that he had a nephew. Felix hugged him tightly and wailed, "Uncle, I can't let you sell your precious treasure that you risked your life to obtain for merely 6 million South Carolina."